The story opens with a man congratulating Fan Xiao for winning the lottery yet again, handing him the prize of 10 million. The employee is then taken aback by the strange mask our protagonist wears to collect his money. He asks the young man not to wear that frightening outfit every time, but Fan Xiao explains it's to preserve his luck and feel secure. After taking his prize, the lucky winner leaves as the attendant wishes him frequent returns. Outside, he removes the mask and introduces himself Fan Xiao, a man with the superpower to accumulate his own luck. With a vast amount of stored luck, he consistently hits the jackpot and has already done so 4 times. To win this time, he saved up luck for an entire month, but the trade-off was constantly encountering thieves and criminals. Smiling, he wonders if storing luck for 1 month causes so much misfortune, what might happen after 2. The scene then cuts to 2 months after his last lottery win. Right now, the young man is on a peaceful run through the park, enjoying a city evening. But as he jogs, someone watches him from the bushes, muttering about being famished. Suddenly, he stops running, sensing an odd presence creeping up behind him. A man with a grotesque appearance then leaps at him, shouting that he smells delicious and will be his next meal. The protagonist recognizes this as an evolved one, thinking he expected bad luck, but nothing this extreme. However, the young man was ready for such an encounter and quickly pulls a canister from his pocket. He points it at the enemy and yells for the evolved one to get a face full of pepper spray. The spray hits the creature squarely in the eyes, blinding it and causing it to howl in agony. Seizing the chance, the protagonist delivers a sharp kick to the enemy's chin, knocking it to the ground. After subduing the strange man, Fan Xiao uses a rope he was carrying to tie him up. With the evolved one bound on the ground, the young man calls the police to report the attack. The scene shifts to the police station, where our hero is once again giving a statement. An officer, speaking with Fan Xiao, asks just how many times he's been there to file a report. The young man replies that, so far, he has taken down 47 criminals and given 112 statements. The officer remarks it's a shame he isn't on the force with his talent for catching crooks, and asks who he brought in today. He mentions reading news about evolved ones, commenting that his attacker was as strong as those described online. The officer scolds him, telling him not to speak nonsense, claiming evolved ones are just internet rumors. Fan Xiao merely thinks that if he weren't an evolved one himself, he might actually believe the officer's foolishness. After leaving the station, the protagonist walks alone through the city's dark streets. He reflects on how storing luck for 2 months led to being attacked by an evolved one, a truly close call. It's then explained that a month prior, some humans began undergoing physical mutations, now known as evolved ones. While he's lost in thought, a dog suddenly appears and starts barking at him. The protagonist stares back at the dog, his eyes filled with a serious, primal hunger. This terrifies the animal, which recoils in fear from the young man's intense aura. He then recognizes the dog as the husky belonging to an elderly neighbor, Grandpa Lee, but deep inside, his evolved instinct screams that the dog looks delicious and he should pounce. With immense effort, he resists the urge and sprints away, leaving a bewildered dog behind. Back home, he reflects that ever since becoming an evolved one, he feels a bottomless hunger for living things. He tries searching for information online, but all content about evolved ones has been scrubbed from the internet. The young man wonders if he'll eventually succumb to his instincts and become someone who preys on humans. But refusing to become a monster, he decides to use the 2 months of luck he's accumulated to fix this. An energy of luck starts swirling around his body, filling the room with an intense light. Suddenly, the young man is utterly stunned by what materializes before him. A system screen appears, congratulating him for qualifying for the evolution game as a preparatory player. The screen then displays the available classes for him: Unlucky One, Dark Knight, and Assassin. The protagonist feels the Unlucky One class is a poor choice, and Dark Knight is far too cringy. Through elimination, he decides his best option is the Assassin class. The system congratulates his choice and informs him he's earned an opportunity to develop a talent. He smiles, remarking that luck is a form of strength, and he just happens to have 2 months' worth saved up. Fan Xiao then focuses channeling all his accumulated luck to develop the best talent possible. Through this, he acquires a rank A talent called Assassin Angel, which wields the 7 deadly sins as weapons. Analyzing his new power, he understands he can now summon a combatant that can turn invisible and teleport. The young man is overjoyed, thinking that spending 2 months of luck on this was absolutely worth it. Next, his player panel appears on the screen, detailing all his information and stats. A 10-second countdown then begins for his first selection mission. The moment the countdown hits 0, his body is engulfed in light and teleported away. The system screen announces that the selection trial for his new alias, Seal, has officially started. Shortly after, the mission details appear, explaining he's been sent to an abandoned city teeming with monsters. The protagonist suddenly materializes in the middle of a deserted street, shocked by the abrupt change of scenery. Still dazed, he pushes himself off the ground, trying to process what just happened. He realizes his self-defense kit is gone, concluding it was removed for game balance. Entering what appears to be a warehouse, he finds others. One of them mentions they all received the game notification. An executive asks a student if his mission is also to locate the station, and the young man confirms it. Nearby, a hooded man denies reality while a middle-aged man and a frightened woman watch him. There are also 2 student sisters. The younger asks what to do now as her older sister comforts her. The middle-aged man approaches the green-haired girl, telling her not to be afraid because he'll protect her. However, his intentions make her uneasy, and she screams for him to back off immediately. In her hurry to get away, the girl stumbles and falls, startled by the man. She sits on the ground, wincing in pain from the fall she took while trying to flee. Seeing her in this state, the middle-aged man's expression turns strange as he starts to drool. But before he can act, the hooded young man interrupts, stating the dungeon mission is their top priority. The older sister announces it's 7:38 in the morning, meaning they can leave the shelter. The green-haired woman suggests waiting until 8 or 9 to ensure the monsters are inactive. Our hero then interjects, advising against wasting time due to a hidden mission timer. He explains that since the city is abandoned, their stamina will dwindle without supplies. The green-haired woman apologizes for not considering that and grasps the severity of their situation. The executive agrees with Fan Xiao, admitting he hadn't thought about food and they need to move. With that, the entire group of 8 people bands together and heads out of the shelter. As they walk, the protagonist notices the older sister's doll, wondering if it's a special item. He also suspects there could be another evolved one among them with the same cannibalistic urges he has. The man in the suit is equally wary, thinking those who hide their faces are the most suspicious. Finally, they all exit the building into the courtyard just outside the safe zone. Upon reaching the main street, they find the city deserted and littered with skeletal remains. The executive complains about the city's massive size, saying the search for the station will be time-consuming. The student suggests since the city resembles those on Earth, they should search for regular stations. But the executive retorts that they have no idea where the stations are, a point the young man concedes. The man in the suit then glances at Fan Xiao, thinking his logic is sound and can't be dismissed. He approaches the protagonist and amicably asks what he should call him. The young man gives a fake name, Fan Jianqiang, and the executive asks for the next step. Our hero states they need a map and suggests checking subway entrances for one. The hooded man notes that piecing maps together would be tough, but Fan Xiao clarifies they only need a few key locations. The executive agrees they have no alternative, and the student is eager to begin the search. Meanwhile, the large man tries to sidle up to the sisters, but the older one sharply tells him to scram. Half an hour later, the group finally locates a subway entrance in the heart of the city. Upon arrival, they see the entrance is pitch black, sparking fears of monsters lurking below. Fan Xiao then pulls a match from his pocket, prompting a surprised executive to ask where he got it. Using the match, the protagonist lights an improvised torch he had prepared to light their way. Torch in hand, he prepares to descend the stairs and lead the group through the darkness. But before he moves, the man in the suit stops him, telling him to wait a moment. Using his enhanced hearing, he detects the breathing of 4 monsters on the lower level. The student is stunned, asking if that sharp hearing is his special talent. The executive looks confused and asks what a talent is, leaving the young man even more shocked by his ignorance. Fan Xiao then asks what animal he hunted, and the man reveals he preyed on a dog to survive. He explains he couldn't bear the predatory urge, and his hunger vanished after consuming the animal. As a result, he gained dog-like ears and the animal's highly developed hearing and sense of smell. The student is impressed by the story, while the executive mentions his own hunger subsided after becoming a player. Our hero then asks what it feels like to eat a raw dog, making the man suspicious. The young man claims it's just curiosity masking his true intent, so the executive remains unsuspecting. The hooded man then approaches and secretly asks if he has ever considered preying on people. This question leaves the executive utterly horrified and shocked by the suggestion. The man with dog ears is left stunned and speechless by the terrifying question. Frightened, he backs away from the protagonist, asking how he could harbor such a monstrous thought. By analyzing the man's micro-expressions, our hero concludes he isn't lying and poses no threat. He then dismisses it as a joke, adding that perhaps some evolved ones do prey on people. The student lets out a sigh of relief, saying the protagonist's joke nearly gave him a heart attack. The green-haired girl suggests finding another subway entrance, since this one contains monsters. But Fan Xiao argues that if monsters avoid light, other subway entrances will likely have enemies too. The executive sees the protagonist's point and tells them to press on. The green-haired woman refuses to go, paralyzed by fear, and the large man yells at her, calling her crazy. The student and the hooded man also suggest finding another entrance, hoping it will be clear of monsters. Fan Xiao ignores the debate, announcing he'll find the map himself while they figure things out. He thinks that encountering danger would be a perfect opportunity to test his rank A talent's effectiveness. The protagonist then descends the stairs alone, torch in hand, and begins exploring the dark subway tunnels. A moment later, the executive and the 2 sisters come running after him, telling him to wait up. After catching up, the man in the suit explains they decided to join him in the search for the map. The older sister adds that she needs to see the map for herself, and Fan Xiao commends her caution. Our hero claims to have a photographic memory and asks them to turn away so he can memorize the map undisturbed. Suddenly, the younger sister is startled by something and clings to her sister's arm in terror. She points into the gloom, screaming desperately that there's a monster right there. They look where she's pointing and see a massive red creature sleeping soundly on the floor. Very carefully, the group flattens themselves against the wall to avoid waking the beast as they search for the map. Our hero then gets a brilliant idea to resolve the situation without a fight. Smiling, he tells the group they can stop, as he's already found the map. The young man then illuminates the wall with his torch, revealing a giant map of YB City. Back outside, the older sister asks if he truly memorized everything in just a minute. He replies that it was subconscious memorization and begins sketching a copy of the map on the ground for them. The girl is astonished, as his drawing perfectly matches what she managed to remember from the map. Just then, the rest of the group that stayed behind finally arrives, finding the four of them. The green-haired woman expresses her relief that they're safe and apologizes for her earlier fear. The older sister states they can't be a team if half of them flee at the first sign of danger. The large man gets angry, asking if he isn't allowed to be scared, but the girl retorts that in that case, he won't get the map. He challenges her, asking if the other three are willing to forego the map because of her. But before the argument escalates, the hooded man shoves the large man, silencing him. The hooded man apologizes for their mistake, and the green-haired girl also apologizes for her fear. The student apologizes for his cowardice as well, promising to cooperate with the team from now on. Seeing them all apologize makes the middle-aged man furious with his own teammates. The older sister stares him down and asks if he has anything else to add. Under pressure, he apologizes, but inwardly vows to get his revenge on her later. Fan Xiao cuts the bickering short, telling them to save their energy since they don't even know if they'll make it out alive. He holds up 2 copies of the map and announces they're splitting up, which panics the student. The protagonist explains the city has 3 stations, and splitting up is the most efficient approach for the mission. The older sister announces that she and her sibling will explore the East Station, letting the others decide their own paths. The large man offers to join them, but the girl rejects him, telling him to go elsewhere. With a sneer, he says he'll go wherever he pleases and she can't control him. The student once again tells him to go somewhere else, and the man tells her to mind her own business. Seeing the squabble, the executive asks what's going on. The man defends himself, saying he can choose any station he likes. Our hero then steps in, saying he also wants to go to the East Station, and suggests the 4 of them go together. The middle-aged man grows suspicious, wondering what trick the protagonist is trying to pull. The young man hands a map to the other group, saying he doesn't need it, as the executive trusts our hero's memory. The man in the suit then organizes the remaining members, stating he and the hooded man will lead the other 2 teams. The hooded man announces he's heading to the North Station, and the green-haired woman offers to accompany him. This leaves the student and the executive to form the final team, preparing to depart for their station. The protagonist group then parts ways with the others, walking down the desolate street toward their destination. As they walk, the large man watches the 2 sisters with a strange, predatory gaze. He keeps his intimidating stare fixed on the girls, who are walking ahead oblivious. The 2 students walk hand in hand, drawing comfort from each other in the abandoned city. The large man starts having vile thoughts, imagining the 2 girls in a compromised situation. He muses that the girls dared to stand up to him earlier, and now that they're isolated, he can make his move. But suddenly, the protagonist appears behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder and breaking his train of thought. The large man is startled by the abrupt appearance, as Fan Xiao asks what was on his mind. With a grin, our hero comments that the 2 sisters smell quite tempting, don't they? The man asks what he's talking about, and the protagonist tells him to drop the act. He then asks if the man isn't hungry for the 2 girls, since they look so appetizing. The man realizes the young man is also an evolved one, and Fan Xiao notes it's better to feign ignorance in a crowd. The protagonist claims his appetite is unbearable, thinking to himself that he successfully deceived the man. The man agrees, complaining that their hunger hasn't diminished like the other players. He also laments that they lose their talents and skills after preying on humans, a disadvantage our hero now understands. The man asks how many abilities he had, saying he'd acquired 5, but now they are all gone. Fan Xiao is surprised, having thought 3 was the limit, but the man explains he consumes several animals before targeting people. Suddenly, the older sister stops walking, having overheard the 2 men's conversation. Her face a mask of horror, she spins around and accuses the man of preying on people, leaving him stunned. The protagonist proposes they each take one of the sisters, claiming the older one for himself. The large man transforms into a hulking monster and agrees, adding that there's no need to rush. With a malevolent glare, he reveals he first wants to have a little fun with the 2 girls. He tells them to cooperate if they want to suffer less, but the student threatens him with the consequences. The monster just scoffs, unconcerned about any potential repercussions. Fan Xiao then tells him not to worry, as they can easily blame monsters for the girl's disappearance. With a wicked grin, the young man adds that no one would care if 2 strangers went missing. The older sister tells the younger one to run for help while she creates a diversion. She throws her doll, which glows with an uncanny energy, and screams for her sister to go. The monster sneers at her attempt to hold them off, calling her arrogant for challenging him. The student lands a kick on the enemy as her flying doll slashes at him with a scythe. But the attack seems to have no effect, leaving the girl shocked at the monster's resilience. The doll strikes the enemy's face directly, but he doesn't even flinch from the blow. The younger sister hesitates to flee, and the older one screams at her to hurry and bring back the others. Enraged, the man shatters the doll against his body and vows to make the girl regret being born. The student is horrified to see her plan of attack has completely failed. In a swift move, the monster grabs the girl's neck with his massive, powerful hand. He lifts her off the ground with a single hand, telling her to watch how he'll deal with her. Suddenly, a slicing sound cuts through the air as something shoots through the monster's body. A sharp blade pierces the man's chest, leaving him in shock, unable to comprehend what happened. Our hero is revealed as the assailant facing the monster with a cold, calculated gaze. The enemy collapses, defeated as the protagonist stands over him, the two terrified sisters watching. The younger sister rushes to the older one's side, who is coughing and recovering from the chokehold. The system announces that player Seal has eliminated player King of the World, but item inheritance has failed. The student realizes Fan Xiao wasn't an evolved one after all, but was merely gathering information. The girl asks how he grew suspicious, and her sister explains that you can't discuss such things openly at the start. The protagonist adds that before the man revealed himself, he had suspected the two sisters as well. The older sister says the very thought of preying on people makes her sick to her stomach. She then suggests they introduce themselves properly now that the immediate threat is gone. The girl introduces herself as Lu Jinny and her younger sister as Lu Beiji, extending a hand to our hero. The protagonist sticks with his fake name, Fan Jianqiang, though the girl seems unconvinced. She asks if splitting up was a ploy to expose the monsters, and he confirms it was to remove the threat from their team. This makes the younger sister realize there could be other cannibalistic evolved ones among the players. He then announces they're going after the hooded man and the fragile woman's group, confusing the sisters. The young man explains he suspects they are monsters, and Lu Ziding asks which one he's more wary of. He admits it's just a hunch, and they still need to confirm who the real monster is. With that, the trio takes off, running through the deserted city streets in pursuit of their next target. They move swiftly through the alleyways, trying to locate the hooded man's group as quickly as possible. Suddenly, they spot the hooded man and the woman running towards them, looking relieved to be saved. The girl screams for help, crying that there's a monster, and our hero remarks that their timing is perfect. But to everyone's astonishment, they both start accusing each other of being the true people-eating monster. Fan Xiao assesses the situation and asks if either of them has proof to back up their claims. The hooded man displays a wound on his arm, claiming the girl bit him and tore off a piece of flesh. She frantically denies it, showing a similar bite mark on her own arm and insisting he is the real monster. The protagonist suspects one of them self-inflicted the wound and suggests they rely on intuition. Lu Zinning agrees to trust him, but her younger sister thinks it's a rash decision. Bolstered by the girl's confidence, the protagonist steps between the two and announces his choice. He aims his weapon at the woman and says he chooses to believe the hooded man, much to the girl's relief. The hooded man shouts desperately, telling him not to be deceived by her appearance, that she is the monster. Our hero tells the young man to be quiet, stating she is a beautiful human, and the woman thanks him for his trust. He then approaches the girl, reassuring her not to be afraid because he is definitely on her side. But in a flash, the older sister attacks the woman from behind while the protagonist holds her in place. The woman is stunned, pierced from behind with no chance to react. In agony, she screams, realizing the two were acting to trick her and catch her off guard. Lu Zinning asks if he wasn't worried she wouldn't catch on, and he replies he trusted she would know what to do. The girl is impressed by his intelligence and courage, and by the fact he trusted her without any warning. With the plan a success, our hero yells for the monster to finally reveal its true form. Seething with hatred and rage, the woman's face contorts into a demonic, terrifying visage. She transforms into a bizarre, giant monster, swearing to torture them to their last breath before devouring them. He realizes this monster is stronger than the last and shouts for the girl to fall back to a safe position. The furious monster begins chasing them through the streets, roaring for the pair of dogs to stop running. The pursuit leaves a trail of destruction across the city, with explosions and smoke billowing everywhere. Lu Zinning asks if he has a plan, but the young man tells her not to worry, as reinforcements are coming. Suddenly, the protagonist stops running and turns to face the creature charging at him. With a confident smirk, he announces that the reinforcements he was waiting for have finally arrived. He then taunts the monster, saying he admires its courage for making such a scene, and asks if the area looks familiar. The creature is baffled by the question and glances around, trying to make sense of the situation. Then, the silhouettes of 3 other monsters appear, and our hero confirms this was his trap all along. The red creatures pounce on the green monster, who curses the wretches as they attack. Lu Zinning now understands the attack on her leg was meant to slow her down and lure the other monsters. He roars for the creatures to get lost, saying he has a score to settle with the players first. With the monsters preoccupied, the protagonist declares it's time to end this whole mess. He then summons his special talent, the Assassin Angel, which materializes amidst crackling lightning and purple energy. The angel surveys the monster brawl and excitedly remarks that it has found several new toys to play with. With a triumphant shout, Fan Xiao points at the monsters and commands his angel to attack. The summon then streaks towards the green monster, which is still entangled with the others. The creature notices the angel's approach and looks up, completely surprised by this new foe. With a wicked grin, the angel prepares to unleash its full destructive power on the monster. In an instant, it utterly dismembers the creatures with its powers, leaving everyone stunned. The monster has no chance to react to the surprise assault, and is hit head-on by the angel's strike. With a single attack, the creature is obliterated, its pieces scattering in every direction. The rest of the group watches from a distance, completely floored by what they just witnessed. The angel then swiftly eliminates the other 2 monsters that were in its path. The final 2 enemies leap towards Fan Xiao in a desperate direct attack. But the angel, amused by their attempt, intercepts both monsters in mid-air before they can reach him. Effortlessly, the summon destroys the last two creatures remaining on the battlefield. The protagonist stands calmly as the remains of the monsters rain down around him. With a satisfied smile, he turns and declares that the job is finally done. The system announces he has eliminated player Little Fairy, but once again item inheritance has failed. The angel then embraces the young man, begging to play more, as he realizes the summon drains his mental energy. With a snap of his fingers, the protagonist dismisses his summon, which vanishes instantly. Lu Jining, in shock, asks if that was his talent. The young man explains it's a cruel angel, which is why they were frightened. The student notices the hooded man's wound is healed and asks whose healing talent that is. The younger sister reveals the rank C healing talent is hers, capable of mending even fatal wounds in seconds. Fan Xiao then asks Lu Jining about her doll manipulation talent, which she confirms she possesses. She explains the doll was considered an extension of her body and asks if they will resume the search for the station. He says there's no need, as he already knows its location, and they should regroup with the others first. Back at the shelter, the student grumbles that the protagonist's tactical mind has turned the game into a witch hunt. The executive defends him, saying it was a stroke of luck they uncovered a hidden cannibalistic monster on their team. Our hero then announces he's brought the solution to their mission, leaving the man in the suit confused. He reveals the bodies of the monsters he defeated, and the student complains about the effort it took to haul them back. The executive grasps the plan, saying that with the newspapers he gathered, they can piece together what happened in the city. The protagonist says he has good news and bad news, asking which they want to hear first. The man with dog ears replies that he'd rather get the bad news out of the way. The young man points to a monster, and the others observe that the creature is strong but sensitive to sound and prefers darkness. The hooded man says they need to prepare for it, but Fan Xiao cuts him off, saying he's missing the point. Lu Jining then notes that the monster's body shape is strikingly similar to a normal human's. With a smile, he confirms their suspicion, revealing that those creatures were originally human. The student and the executive are utterly shocked by the revelation, unable to believe it. The hooded man understands he dissected the monster to confirm its organs were human. The university student panics, asking if it's a zombie apocalypse, but our hero corrects him, calling it evolution crisis. The executive concludes they're in a parallel world, a fact Fan Xiao confirms by showing them the newspapers. The articles detail the dawn of a new evolutionary era, with humans hunting animals to grow stronger. The student falls into despair, fearing their world is destined for the same tragic fate. The rest of the group is also terrified of what's to come, with the younger sister lamenting never having found a boyfriend. Our hero tells them not to be so pessimistic, as this apocalyptic outcome could actually be a warning for them. Lu Jining is intrigued by this statement and asks what he means by a warning. He explains the dungeon is showing them a possible future, and they've been selected to be the agents of change. The student and the executive get excited, asking if they are meant to be saviors of the future and guide it correctly. The older sister watches the protagonist, thinking that despite his arrogance, his ability to rally everyone is quite charming. The executive asks if that was the good news, and the protagonist shakes his head. He then reveals the good news is that he has deduced the location of the space-time station. The young man challenges the others to guess the location based on the clues he's already provided. The student admits he's terrible at riddles and scratches his head, stumped. The man in the suit deduces the clues point to the most dangerous place, where the city's population was densest. The hooded man suggests dark places like parking garages or sewers, since the monsters favor darkness. The younger sister then ventures a guess, asking if the location could be the city zoo. Our hero praises her guess, saying her answer is very close to the mark. Lu Jining then concludes that the only two logical options are the city's zoo or its aquarium. She explains the most dangerous place is where the dungeon boss is located, blocking their exit. The student asks in confusion why the zoo or aquarium would be the station's location. The executive explains their reasoning was flawed. They should have been thinking about how humans became monsters. It was because they consumed too many other animals, leading to excessive mutations and a complete loss of sanity. And the places with the highest concentration of animals in a city are the zoo and the aquarium. Perfect layers for a boss. These two locations are the most likely to have spawned a powerful dungeon boss for them to confront. With a confident smile, the protagonist confirms their theory, stating the correct location is the aquarium. He presents the city's final newspaper, which reports a disaster at the aquarium and the emergence of a monster. The student realizes the young man knew the answer all along and was just building suspense. The man with dog ears remarks they're in for a tough fight and hopes the boss isn't too powerful. The hooded man doubts the boss could be stronger than the protagonist and watches him intently. Our hero notices the hooded man's anxiety and asks if he's worried about the upcoming fight. The young man confirms, but inwardly he's actually afraid the protagonist might snap and attack them all. Fan Xiao says that based on his deductions, they won't need to fight the dungeon boss directly. Lu Jining understands the plan. They will use the monster corpses as bait to distract the boss. The executive is eager to set off, but the protagonist insists they rest and recover their strength first. The man in the suit questions this decision, pointing out it's still early, but the young man is firm. Our hero says he's tired and they won't leave until morning, though he won't stop anyone who wants to go ahead. He knows he can't risk facing the boss before his angel's cooldown period is over. Lu Jining agrees with the plan, and her sister says she'll follow the older one's lead. The rest of the group also consents to wait, thinking they must cling to this lifeline. The executive finally agrees, stating they will all depart together the next morning. With that, night descends upon the ruined city, bringing a dangerous and eerie darkness. After a long, tense night, the sun finally rises over Waiba's horizon, signaling a new day. The man in the suit announces they've rested enough, but the protagonist remains motionless. Fan Xiao tells them to wait a bit longer, prompting the executive to complain that their food is about to run out. The young man tells him to go on ahead if he's in a rush, as he can't risk moving before his angel recharges. Irritated by this response, the man with cat ears asks the rest of the group for their opinion. The hooded man and the student say they'll listen to the protagonist, seeing no need to hurry. Seeing everyone side with Fan Xiao makes the executive even more furious. Lu Xining is suspicious, wondering if his talent truly has a cooldown or if he's bluffing. Then our hero stretches, announcing he wasn't stalling and that they can finally head out. At last, the group arrives at their destination, finding the city's aquarium in complete ruins. The younger sister is shocked by the devastation, asking how such a massive place could end up like this. Fortunately, they found a teddy bear, which Lu Xining now uses to easily carry the monster corpses. The executive grumbles that because of their delay, they might not make it back to the shelter by nightfall. The student and the man in the suit peer inside, concluding the gate and the boss must be in there. Wasting no more time, the group prepares to finally enter the aquarium and explore. The interior is pitch black and silent, appearing as if it's been abandoned for ages. They come across numerous photos of tourists and staff lining the corridor walls. The girl asks if he's found any clues, and our hero replies that something feels very familiar. He studies a photo of a mermaid, a diver, and a giant octopus at the bottom of the aquarium tank. The younger sister remarks sadly that the place must have been beautiful before its destruction. Suddenly, the student shouts excitedly that he's found a complete map of the aquarium. On the map, they pinpoint the exact location of the space-time gate marked with a code. With the location secured, the group wastes no time, running excitedly towards their ultimate goal. They soon arrive in a vast area featuring a giant pool with a platform in the middle. There in the center of the pool, they finally spot the space-time gate shimmering atop the platform. The executive warns them not to celebrate yet, as his enhanced hearing picks up something large in the water, likely the boss. He calculates that if the bait can distract the monster, they can swim the 20 meters to the platform. But to everyone's shock, the younger sister reveals she can't swim, leaving the executive stunned. Our hero offers to carry the girl and asks if her sister can use her puppet to fly them over. Lu Jining explains that flying some would be too slow and cumbersome, swimming is their best bet. The executive argues they can't be held back by one person and suggests leaving her behind. He says that as an intelligent person, she should understand the danger of bringing along a non-swimmer. Fan Xiao intervenes, insisting they must take her to avoid greater complications. He explains that if left behind, she might panic and alert the monsters, jeopardizing the entire plan. The man in the suit is rendered speechless, knowing the protagonist is right about the risk. The younger sister offers to stay, but the older one declares that if she doesn't go, no one does. The situation grows tense, and our hero asks the younger sister what she wants him to do. Without waiting for a reply, he sweeps her up into his arms, leaving the girl surprised and blushing. He states that abandoning the weak isn't the right choice, and that they will succeed together. The younger sister thanks him with a smile as he tells everyone to prepare to enter the water. The executive concedes and readies himself to execute the plan with the others. They then toss the monster corpses into the water as bait to draw the boss's attention. The body parts float in the pool, creating a gruesome and unsettling scene. The bait works, the remains begin to be dragged down into the murky depths. Suddenly, giant red tentacles erupt from the water, seizing the corpses and pulling them under. The pool's surface churns violently as the monster moves below. The student and the hooded man scream in terror as the massive boss finally makes its appearance. Seizing the distraction, our hero yells that this is their chance to cross. The group leaps into the water without hesitation, swimming as fast as they can toward the platform. Our hero tells the girl in his arms to hold her breath as he dives with her into the water. He then senses something amiss in the water and glances back suspiciously. The group continues swimming together through the dark pool, pushing for the other side. Suddenly, the protagonist realizes someone is missing and spots the executive with a malevolent grin. The man in the suit holds up a block of stone, saying the protagonist is right. He does have a choice. With a flick of his wrist, he hurls the stone into the water to draw the monster's attention. The group. The splash attracts the boss, which now turns its focus toward the players swimming in the pool. The younger sister sees this and desperately asks what is happening. The executive reveals he doesn't want anyone else getting out alive, and that he'll be the first to make a move. The student curses the executive, calling him a scoundrel and asking what they're supposed to do now. The monster's tentacles lash out, grabbing everyone with immense force. They are all hoisted into the air by the tentacles, left dangling with no hope of escape. Our hero declares there's no other option, they have to fight the monster to survive. The monster then fully emerges from the water, roaring furiously at the players who dared to challenge it. Taking advantage of the chaos, the executive shouts that now is the time and dives into the water to make his escape. Lu Jining, trapped by the tentacles, braces for the worst. She remarks that if the man in the suit tried to betray them, he won't escape the monster either. The protagonist yells at her to ignore him and use her ability to pierce the monster's eyes. Using her puppet control technique, the teddy bear lunges and attacks the monster's eyes with force. The monster bellows in pain from the attack and flings everyone into the water to dislodge the teddy bear. The hooded man shouts in alarm that the student is about to be taken out, urging Fan Xiao to do something. But the protagonist tells him to wait a bit longer, as the younger sister blames herself for being useless. Lu Xining wonders why he won't act, questioning what he's waiting for with his powerful abilities. Meanwhile, the executive nears the gate, thinking that sacrificing the others is the only path to victory. But suddenly he loses control of his limbs and wonders what's happening to him. He then hears a beautiful song and wonders who could possibly be singing in a place like this. A giant mermaid appears in the water and seizes him, revealing herself as the true dungeon boss. The creature embraces him with a smile, dragging him down into the depths, never to be seen again. With a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth, the mermaid mercilessly devours the man in an instant. The pool water grows still and silent after the traitorous executive's demise. The other monster begins furiously attacking the teddy bear to avenge the earlier assault. Lu Xining demands to know why Fan Xiao still hasn't acted, asking if his ability hasn't recharged. He urges her to be patient, telling her to wait just a little longer for his plan to unfold perfectly. The pool water starts to bubble, and the protagonist watches the movement in front of him intently. With a focused gaze, he says he has finally found what he was searching for in the depths. He then summons his assassin angel, which rises from the water, radiating a dark, powerful energy. Our hero points at the monster in the water and orders his angel to go and finish it once and for all. The summon smiles, remarking that it likes the monster's powerful aura and that it has finally found its prey. The angel dives into the water, creating a massive whirlpool that pulls the mermaid into a confrontation. Glowing with a pink light, the angel prepares to strike the mermaid with its full destructive might. The summon then soars toward the mermaid, who also readies herself for the underwater battle. The mermaid uses her powers to paralyze the angel, leaving it motionless and helpless in the water. The other monster seizes the opportunity, attacking the rest of the group with its tentacles. Our hero then draws his sword, preparing to fight the creatures alongside his angel. He slices through the tentacles, yelling for the monster to perish as he strikes with his sharp blade. He then pierces the monster's chest with a precise and deadly blow, right through its core. The protagonist holds the sword steady as the monster shrieks in agony from the wound. In a flash, the angel breaks free and severs the tentacles that had ensnared the other players. The summon then delivers a final, decisive blow to the monster's head. The attack completely vanquishes the creature, and our hero and his angel land victoriously. The monster's remains sink into the water, turning the liquid a murky, turbid red. With the enemy defeated, the two sisters embrace, relieved and overjoyed to have survived. The system congratulates player, Seal, for slaying the boss and announces he will receive an exclusive reward. With a sigh of relief, our hero declares that the dungeon mission is finally over. Lu Xining then asks how he knew another monster was hiding in the water. He replies it was just a hunch, recalling the familiar photo he had mentioned earlier. The young man explains he had seen the couple from the photo in newspapers related to the aquarium. The newspaper identified the man as a dangerous target who had consumed most of the aquarium's creatures. Our hero therefore deduced that a human who consumes an octopus becomes an octopus monster. He then theorized that the man in the photo hadn't consumed humans, implying another monster was present. Lu Xining gets annoyed, saying he knew everything all along and even goaded the executive into betraying them. The protagonist argues he didn't force him, the man chose to betray the group to save himself. He explains that in a place like this, people's darkest impulses are brought to the surface. Lu Xining admits that if he had abandoned her sister, she might have done the same thing for revenge. But the girl adds that she knows her sister will always be fine, no matter what. Our hero asks where she gets such confidence in her younger sister's luck. She explains her sister has always been lucky, surviving perilous situations is nothing new for her. The young man's interest is piqued by the girl's luck, and he suggests they discuss it privately later. He then considers that maybe his own luck attribute isn't so unique, and that he needs to investigate further. He realized that since arriving here, his luck has been accumulating 10 times faster than normal. This means that in just 2 days, he has amassed the equivalent of 20 days' worth of luck from the outside. With that thought, he prepares to leave, but Lu Xining stops him, asking him to wait a moment. Our hero turns back, confused by the girl's slightly embarrassed demeanor. She suddenly bows deeply in gratitude, shouting his fake name in thanks. The rest of the group thanks him as well, and he finally reveals his real name is Fan Xiao. Lu Xining is irritated to learn even his name was a lie and grumbles in frustration. The student finds the name familiar, and the protagonist explains he's been in the news for apprehending criminals. The girl observes him, thinking he's a terrifying individual due to his skills and his ability to manipulate everyone. The younger sister then asks for his contact information, and he agrees to exchange details with her. Lu Beiji says she'll call him, and the two sisters bid farewell before stepping through the exit portal. The student praises the protagonist, calling him admirable yet slightly frightening. The final two members say their goodbyes and also pass through the portal, returning to their own world. The system informs him that players are sorted into 3 categories based on what they've consumed. Since Fan Xiao consumed no animals, he is granted the status of a white named noble player. He is suddenly teleported back to his house, realizing the mission is complete. He notes that time within the dungeon is compressed and that his items have returned to him. With a smile, he realizes his insatiable hunger is gone. He's been cured of his predatory habit. He then checks his rewards, seeing he's gained various items and 5,000 game coins. For defeating the final boss, he also received a CD grade item, the Sanguine Earring. He decides to examine the boss reward first and claims the item. The earring materializes and fastens itself to his ear, glowing with a crimson energy. The item's description explains it allows him to control his own blood and solidify it into weapons. He feels a surge of power and realizes he's gained a very useful new combat ability. Next, he grabs the evolution potions and downs them all at once to boost his powers. With his body now strengthened, he feels confident he can face monsters head-on. His player panel updates, showing his level has increased, and he's gained an opportunity to upgrade his talent. He's thrilled to see his evolution rate has increased, and that he can enhance his assassin angel. Suddenly, his phone rings with an unknown number, piquing his curiosity. He wonders if it's Lu Beiji calling, or perhaps a notification about a new dungeon. He answers, and a familiar voice introduces herself as Lu Sinning, thanking him again for his help. The protagonist asks if she's only calling to say thanks, and the girl hesitates. She then remembers his interest in her sister's extraordinary luck. He asks about the secret to her luck, and the girl begins to explain. Our hero's expression turns serious. If there's another person like him, he must take it seriously. She recounts how, since childhood, her sister has been in numerous accidents but always emerged unscathed. Lu Beiji chimes in, saying her sister is exaggerating a bit to impress him. The young man understands her luck is merely anecdotal, with no concrete proof. She then asks about his talent, but he skillfully deflects the question, unwilling to reveal his powers. He feigns offense, saying there's no need to talk further if she only wants to pry for information. Lu Sinning clarifies that the tickets they received are dungeon invitations, suggesting they could tackle one together. The girl gets annoyed, thinking he's still wary and doesn't fully trust them. She reveals she has tickets to the zoo, and he mentions he has 3 for different locations. They compare rewards and realize the protagonist received more due to his higher ranking. Lu Sinning proposes they team up for the zoo dungeon since they both have a ticket for it. He agrees, telling her to call when she's ready, and they say their goodbyes before hanging up. The young man thinks that having 2 reliable teammates, one of whom is a healer, isn't a bad idea. He then decides his next move is to enhance the combat power of his little summon. Using the opportunity he earned, he upgrades his assassin angel to a stronger, more powerful level. Impressed by the new attack buffs, he decides to give his summon a name. Next, he picks up a pencil and begins to draw with intense concentration. He holds up a portrait of the 2 monsters he took down, admiring his own artistic skills. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and he realizes his expected visitors have arrived. 3 individuals in suits enter his home, looking at him with serious, professional expressions. One of the men asks how he knew they were coming, and the protagonist answers with ease. He says the previous night's attack involved evolved ones. It was only a matter of time. The woman in the group challenges him, stating that evolved ones are just online rumors. With a confident smirk, he reveals he is an evolved one, leaving the 3 of them utterly shocked. The man who is smoking is dumbfounded by the revelation, unable to believe what he just heard. He then hands them the portraits of the monsters, stating he became an official player the night before. The officer praises the drawings and asks his team to investigate the identities of the individuals depicted. The man in the suit introduces himself as Du Ruo and his assistant as Wu Yanqing from the Bureau of Special Affairs. They reveal they are from a special government department created to handle evolved ones and players. Their organization is responsible for all matters concerning evolved ones in the evolution game. The officer complains that the young man always gets mixed up in strange affairs, and Fan Xiao asks if he knew nothing. He then displays his player code, revealing himself as a white named player. Du Ruo inquires about the other players, but the young man refuses to disclose their identities. He says he would only cooperate under official orders, but the agent tells him there's no need for tests. With a smile, he explains that the emergence of players will disrupt the world's social fabric. He says the agency aims to recruit all players, and joining them offers nothing but benefits. Our hero replies that he'll consider the offer, weighing the advantages of joining. Du Ruo leaves his card with his contact details and a password for the agency website, telling him to call when he decides. Before leaving, the agent thanks him for the information and asks his assistant to use her talent. She confirms Fan Xiao's player code is authentic, and Du Ruo remarks that he will be a great asset in the future. He then asks her to request intel on the young man's next dungeon, stating he wants to observe him. With that, Du Ruo signals the sniper and combat teams on standby to withdraw. A sniper had been positioned on a nearby rooftop, ready to act at a moment's notice. He receives the order to cancel the operation and prepares to leave with his equipment. Suddenly, the protagonist's summon appears behind him with a grin, poised to strike. She approaches, and the sniper asks if they're pulling back, telling her not to get carried away and to return promptly. The summon returns to the apartment, complaining that Fan Xiao didn't let her take out the man. He explains they meant no harm, so they couldn't make the first move against them. With a smile, the protagonist readies himself for the next dungeon, ticket in hand. The ticket displays the details of the upcoming mission, a hotel at the Rose Street station. That same evening, the young man stands atop a tall building, surveying the city below. He approaches the edge, preparing to test the new abilities of his enhanced summon. The angel complains that he's heavy but lifts him into the air, flying a few meters above the building. The summon then gripes that the new conceptual weapon is merely a useful tool for travel and killing. He tells her to rest and dismisses the summon, contemplating his next moves in the game. With his abilities tested, he takes out the new dungeon ticket and prepares for his next mission. The ticket begins to smolder as the system announces the space-time train will arrive in 5 minutes. He is then teleported to a train station, realizing that this time, he wasn't sent to a shelter. Suddenly, a voice asks if he's also there for an instant, surprising him. He turns to see Duruo, who smiles and says he couldn't resist his curiosity and had to try it once. Our hero doubts it's a coincidence and asks how many times he has actually done this. He asks if it's possible they're in the same instance, and Duruo begins to explain. The agent says the chances are slim, as the train stops at many stations with numerous instances. Fan Xiao inquires about the ticket exchange platform, and the man explains its function. Duruo tries to recruit him again, inviting him to join the agency to learn more. Suddenly, a voice announces the train's arrival, and boarding information flashes before them. As the train pulls into the station, boarding precautions are listed for all players. The agent reveals he is also heading to the auspicious hotel, and the protagonist confirms he's going to the same place. He finds it too coincidental and suspects the agency is monitoring him, but decides to stick to the plan. The two then board the train and take their seats for the journey to the next dungeon. He notices other players on the train and that the rules don't prohibit conflict between them. A flight attendant approaches and hands him a menu to browse the food options. The young man is taken aback by the price of coffee, but Duruo offers to pay, citing his status as a high-level player. He then accepts a cup of coffee and begins to drink it calmly while perusing the menu. The protagonist notices a company logo at the bottom of the cup, which intrigues him. Duruo explains that everything here is real, not just a loading screen before the dungeon. He suggests this place is likely a nexus where various space-times intersect. This implies that the train's passengers could come from worlds entirely different from their own. Our hero recalls the dungeon's code, and the agent explains the significance of each part of the number. He reveals that Earth is coded as partition 010, and every world's starting station is A1. The protagonist mulls over the concept of parallel universes being categorized by codes when an announcement breaks his train of thought. The announcement warns that a member of an assassin organization has been spotted at this space-time node. It offers rewards for any information about this extremely dangerous super player. He concludes the game company doesn't have absolute control and that player-run organizations exist. Fan Xiao asks about rank as players, but Duruo retorts that he isn't an encyclopedia. Suddenly, a voice announces the train has reached Rose Street Station and instructs passengers to disembark. As they get off, the protagonist wonders what would happen if they simply stayed on the train. Duruo replies that breaking the rules comes at a cost, and one needs the skill to afford it. With that, both are enveloped in light and teleported from the station to the next dungeon. They materialize in front of a grand hotel with an imposing, old-fashioned architecture. The system announces the start of the auspicious hotel instance, and they brace for the mission. The hotel's backstory is revealed: a body was discovered hidden inside one of the mattresses. The case was a homicide with the body concealed, which triggered a series of disturbing events. Afterward, strange occurrences began, with guests reporting sightings of a woman in a red dress. Guests started vanishing, their bodies later found stuffed inside the mattresses of their rooms. Panic spread as everyone came to believe the victim had become a vengeful spirit haunting the hotel. Mission tips indicate the spirit is active at night and only one guest is permitted per floor. The mission objective is revealed: survive in the hotel for 3 days. Our hero finds the premise cliché. Other players begin to appear in front of the hotel, joining the group for the mission. They look around, seeing that more people have been summoned to this same instance. Duruo notes that everyone seems to have arrived and readies himself for the dungeon's start. A woman states they are the last group, bringing the total number of participants to 12. A young man suggests they enter the hotel, but a woman stops him, saying they can't go just yet. She shouts suspiciously, demanding to know if any of them are cannibal players in disguise. The woman insists they must prove they aren't monsters and declares she won't enter the hotel otherwise. She firmly repeats her demands, saying anyone else can enter, but she'll be staying outside. A young man gets irritated, asking why he should have to prove anything to her and calling her an idiot. The woman immediately accuses him of being one of the cannibal monsters, and the two start to argue. She then begins pointing at other players, accusing them of being people-eaters and creating chaos. A bald man suggests they should eliminate the threat early to avoid being devoured later. But our hero tells her to lead the charge, promising they'll follow her if she attacks first. He explains he has no obligation to hunt cannibals, and anyone who wishes to can take the lead. With a smirk, he asks who would dare attack first, even if he were a cannibal player. The woman points at the protagonist, accusing him of having already exposed himself and questioning why no one is attacking him. Fan Xiao then starts walking towards the hotel, with Duruo following without hesitation. The agent asks why he, a white name player, antagonized everyone right from the start. He thinks it's better to establish dominance now than be accused later, reasoning the spirit wouldn't let them act so recklessly. Furthermore, he knows the woman's true goal is to gauge everyone's abilities for her own protection, not to eliminate threats. With the argument settled, the group finally enters the hotel lobby, which appears to have been deserted for a long time. One player remarks that it looks like the place hasn't seen visitors in years, as the protagonist mentions the one per floor rule. A bald man asks a businesswoman which floor she'd like, and she chooses the 7th. Another man approaches the same woman, proposing they team up for mutual protection. The group begins to bicker over floors, with one girl wanting the 2nd for an easier escape route. Fan Xiao suggests they scout each floor for clues before choosing rooms, and Duruo agrees they should split up. The young blonde man gets angry at this suggestion, yelling that they can't separate because the hotel is haunted. Our hero then smiles and agrees to search with him, which utterly terrifies the young man. The blonde man recoils in fear, saying he didn't want to go with him, believing the protagonist is a cannibal player. The businesswoman agrees to a separate search, noting the spirit is only active at night, so they must be quick. With an agreement reached, the group begins to ascend the hotel stairs to start their search for clues. Duruo asks Fan Xiao if he believes the spirit is real, and he replies there's no way to know yet. The protagonist says he's heading to the 13th floor, and the agent agrees to meet in the lobby later. Duruo departs, and the young man thinks the agent is sticking too close, likely sent to observe him. The camera then zooms in on the number of the room he chose, 1301, on the hotel's top floor. Upon entering, he confirms the place hasn't been visited in a long time and finding a clue will be difficult. He then decides to use the earring from the last dungeon to create a clue rather than wait for one to appear. Using his new power, the protagonist approaches the room's curtain and begins to write on it. With a swift tug, he pulls the curtain from the window, completing his plan to plant a fake clue. He smiles, thinking the earring is incredibly useful, allowing him to manipulate blood and control its drying time. Back in the lobby, one player reports finding signs of recent occupation, while another found trash in 3 different rooms. The businesswoman says she discovered bloodstains, leading Duruo to conclude that other players have been here before. The young blonde man says he found nothing noteworthy, and another player asks if they're missing someone. At that moment, Fan Xiao appears at the top of the staircase holding the curtain, announcing he's found a new clue. He unfurls the curtain for all to see, revealing a chilling message scrawled in red. One player recoils in fear, asking if it was left by former players whose heads were taken off. The businesswoman deduces the spirit is the culprit, as the mission description mentioned a female entity. The other woman then asks if the previous players were all eliminated by that monster. Our hero theorizes that the spirit knocks on its victims' doors to mark them before its final attack. Duruo connects the dots, realizing only marked individuals perish, and the blonde man complains it all comes down to luck. The bald man suggests they band together to face the spirit, as depending on luck is a poor strategy. Another player agrees, saying that if they stick together, the spirit won't be able to handle them. But the woman in green reminds them of the one per floor rule. Violating it means becoming the first target. The protagonist glares at her scornfully, accusing her of trying to drag others down with her. He then states coldly and directly that she can forget about breaking the rules. The woman, confused, asks the group what he means by that. He explains that if they stay together, everyone will be attacked, but if they stay alone, some might survive the 3 days. She thinks the signs of a struggle imply the spirit doesn't finish its victims instantly, meaning they can fight back. The man with the tattoo declares he'll stay alone, and the bald man agrees, trusting his own luck. The businesswoman then decides everyone must follow the rules and stay in their rooms alone. Our hero tells them to go to their rooms, adding that anyone who wishes to violate the rules is free to do so. The woman accuses the young man of being a cannibal, but another player tells her to shut up and not drag them into it. He thinks that if they break the rules, the game itself will eliminate them before the spirit even shows up. With a smirk, he muses that it doesn't matter if a spirit exists, since he has his own to fight on equal footing. The businesswoman suggests she and the bald man take rooms on adjacent floors to help each other. The other young man also suggests they occupy neighboring floors for mutual support if something happens. The woman in green offers to take the 9th floor to ensure quick backup between them. With their alliance formed, the young man remarks that the more people cooperating, the better. The protagonist observes the group, concluding this small faction poses no immediate threat to him. He then considers that the quieter members could be a problem and decides to keep an eye on them. His attention suddenly locks onto one person in the elevator with him. He wonders why Duruo followed him to the 13th floor when his own room is on the 12th. The agent then says he needs to speak with him about something, which is why he rode up with him. They arrive at the door of room 1308 and prepare to go inside to talk. Duruo sits on the bed, noting there's still time before 9 o'clock and asking if they can chat. The young man agrees, but inwardly thinks the agent is incredibly rude for barging into his room. The agent asks if the bait he set to lure a cannibal player has yielded any results. With a smile, the protagonist replies it was just a long shot that might not pan out. He says no one took the bait, but he has his suspicions, pointing to the quiet young man, the bald man, and the tattooed man. Our hero explains the others are too conspicuous, making the 3 quiet ones the most likely suspects. Duruo then changes the subject, saying he didn't seek him out to discuss cannibal players. With a serious gaze, the agent asks directly if the protagonist was the one who forged the message on the curtain. Fan Xiao stares back, asking if the agent's mission isn't to impersonate the spirit and take people out. But he quickly dismisses it as a joke, adding that he trusts the agent as officers don't harm innocents. Inwardly, however, he thinks that from 10 meters away his summon could eliminate Du Ruo instantly. The agent smiles, assuring him he didn't receive the spirit's mission, and that the young man can test him if he likes. The protagonist then says he believes him and can explain why he forged the clue. He reveals the spirit's pattern was hiding bodies in mattresses, so he fabricated the idea of it marking targets. An illustration shows the fake clue involved an axe attack, whereas the real method was concealing victims. He explains that if the spirit follows his fake rules, it will expose itself as a player, who he will then attack first. The agent notes the young man's confidence, but he admits the entire plan hinges on the spirit being fake. Du Ruo then hands him a Ranky item, an evolutionary paper cup telephone, to aid him. He explains the item allows communication within the same space, which our hero finds very useful. The agent tells him to signal if the bait works, but he's outmatched, promising to provide immediate backup. Before leaving, he asks why Fan Xiao is so certain the hotel's spirit is fake. The young man explains the probability is high as genuinely supernatural events rarely occur in Ranky instances. The agent wishes him luck with the bait and asks to be notified if anything happens during the night. With a confident smile, our hero tells the man in the suit not to worry about him. The scene shifts to 10 o'clock at night in a dark, eerie hotel corridor. The camera focuses on the door to room 902, where one of the female players is staying. The woman in green is huddled in her room, terrified, refusing to believe she could be so unlucky. Suddenly, a knock at the door echoes through the room, sending the girl into a panic. The knocking persists, and she realizes with dread that the spirit has finally come for her. Overcome with fear, she tells herself she just needs to keep the door shut and not open it no matter what. But as she looks up, she is completely horrified by what she sees on the ceiling. A ghostly figure with glowing red eyes hangs upside down, staring down at her. In an instant, the creature lunges, and the woman lets out a blood-curdling scream of pure terror. Outside the room, a loud thud resonates through the silent 9th-floor corridor. In the adjacent room, the businesswoman also hears knocking and goes on high alert. With a serious expression, she readies herself for any threat that might appear. The scene then cuts to daytime at the auspicious hotel, as a new morning dawns for the players. Du Ruo asks Fan Xiao if anything occurred last night, but the young man replies that he heard nothing. The agent yawns, suggesting the spirit might be real after all, and the protagonist suggests they go downstairs to check on the others. The two then take the elevator down to the lobby to regroup with the rest of the players. Upon arrival, they find most of the players are already awake and gathered in the lobby. A young man asks if this is everyone, and our hero wonders if anyone is missing. The purple-haired man points out that the punk couple and the woman who wanted to team up are gone. The businesswoman grows concerned, wondering if something terrible happened to the three of them. Suddenly, the bald man runs towards them, shouting that he had a close call. He yells furiously that the spirit knocked on his door, and though he signaled for help, no one came. The businesswoman and the quiet young man reveal that their doors were also knocked on last night. The bald man becomes even more enraged, accusing them of blatantly lying. The woman defends herself, saying she didn't act because she suspected the spirit was trying to trick her. He accuses her of making excuses, insisting she should have come to help without hesitation. The quiet young man then calls him a coward, pointing out that he didn't come to help either, despite the distress call. Our hero interrupts the argument, stating he also heard the knocking and asking if they think he would lie. He points to the curtain, reminding the young man that the message said the spirit knocks before attacking. The protagonist then turns to the group and announces he has a confession to make. With a smirk, he reveals that he was the one who forged the writing on the curtain. The rest of the group is utterly stunned by this revelation, unable to believe it. The purple-haired man gets angry, demanding to know why he forged the clue and what his motive was. He explains he created the fake clue to test whether a real spirit was haunting the hotel. With a confident gaze, the young man reveals his final conclusion: there is no spirit here. He explains a real spirit wouldn't follow a fake clue, which leaves only one other possibility. With that, he reveals one of the players has been assigned the mission to impersonate the spirit and attack the others. Everyone immediately starts denying and accusing one another of being the imposter, claiming they also heard knocking. The purple-haired young man accuses him of being the spirit, since he orchestrated the whole confusion. But he counters that if it were him, he wouldn't have confessed. He would have simply eliminated them last night. He concludes, therefore, that everyone is a suspect and their enemy is human, not a ghost. He reflects that the game is similar to Mafia or Werewolf, but with some crucial differences in its dynamics. Our hero muses that in Mafia, werewolves must strike at night, but here, the enemy isn't nearly as intimidating. The other players agree there's nothing to fear if their foe is human rather than a real spirit. He then says they must confirm the status of the three missing players as soon as possible. With a wicked grin, he unnerves them by reminding them the spirit stuffs bodies into mattresses, and they might be sleeping on one. The businesswoman and the quiet young man are horrified at the thought of sleeping on a mattress containing a body. He says that by finding the bodies, he can identify which player is posing as the spirit. The rest of the group agrees to search, and the bald man says it's for the best, as they can protect each other during the day. The protagonist then says he said all he needs to, and the choice to believe him is theirs. Duro watches him, thinking the young man is fascinating and wondering what his true plan is. Suddenly, the group hears a noise from upstairs and prepares to investigate its source. After searching over half the hotel, the young man wonders if the bodies aren't in the mattresses after all. He then feels an odd presence and realizes someone is approaching from behind. He turns to see a bald man with glasses holding a strange item. The protagonist is surprised to see this player, who stares back at him with a smile. The bald player asks what he's holding, seemingly confused by the strange item. He introduces himself as the owner of the ranky item called the arrogant doorknob, which can soundproof a room. Our hero now understands this man posed as the spirit and eliminated the other 3 players. The villain confirms he only eliminated the large woman. The punk couple was taken out by the game for breaking rules. The young man then asks why he wasn't attacked last night, since he was an easy target. The enemy reveals he has an item that displays his win rate, and against the protagonist it was only 52%. With a smile, he asks why the villain chose to attack him now, and if he isn't afraid of failing. The man replies he has no choice and his win rate has climbed to 68% after acquiring new items. He then readies his attack, stating he only needs to eliminate 2 more players to win the mission. Our hero realizes the mission is to take out half the players, and notes the enemy is far too talkative about his plans. Suddenly, a powerful purple aura envelops the protagonist's body as he prepares for battle. The villain grins, revealing he has released a ranky poisonous fog and thanks him for stalling. The young man calls him despicable for using poison despite having a high win rate, and the villain just smiles. With a malevolent look from behind a mask, the enemy prepares to deliver the final, victorious blow. A screen describes the spirit suit, an item allowing the user to become spectral and pass through walls. The villain transforms into a red spirit, declaring that survival is all that matters, not the methods used. He then flies towards the protagonist, shouting for him to go to the underworld and prepare to be eliminated. But to the enemy's astonishment, the young man remains calm and catches the attack with his bare hands. Suddenly, the spirit feels a wave of nausea and its stomach churns uncontrollably. With an overwhelming urge to vomit, he can't hold it back and ends up expelling all the poison he used. The villain collapses, weak, wondering how this is possible when his win rate was so high. A blood dagger then pierces the enemy's back, giving him no chance to defend. The protagonist's summon appears with a smile, observing the defeated enemy on the floor. The system then announces that Player Seal has successfully eliminated Player and King. The young man then takes a vial of antidote and drinks it to counteract the poison's effects. He inherits an item from the enemy, thinking that the win rate detector fails to account for innate talent. The inherited item is the arrogant doorknob, and he concludes that he can't rely on the abilities of low-rank items. His summon complains about the enemy's outfit, and he corrects her, saying not to disrespect the remains. He says he still has a use for the body, and the summon transforms back into a normal man. The little angel pouts, and he thinks she acts like a child before deciding to contact Duru. He then activates his anemic earring, and the enemy's blood begins to drain from his body. The earring forges a link between his blood and the target's, allowing him to control it for an hour. He fashions the blood into a hand crossbow, explaining that a single blood arrow can establish the connection. He explains he can make the target's blood flow in reverse or even cause them to explode. Suddenly, Duru appears at the doorway, and the young man aims his crossbow at the agent. The agent is shocked, asking what's happening and why the protagonist is armed. He sees the body on the floor and asks if the fight is over and if the protagonist has dealt with the spirit. The man in the suit approaches and is shocked by the state of the body, which appears to have been mutilated. He thinks the young man's power is beyond imagination, as the protagonist lowers his blood weapon. Duru worries that his mental state is a problem and decides he'll have to revise his file upon their return. The agent then asks why the spirit doesn't match the description from the hotel's mission brief. With a smirk, our hero says it's because of the mask, which he claims would fetch a good price. The man in the suit analyzes the body, thinking the spirit wasn't a cannibal player and pondering its traits. Suddenly, the protagonist says there's a problem, the spirit is defeated, but the instance hasn't ended. The agent then wonders what the true mission could be, if not banishing a spirit. Our hero says he has a theory and suggests taking the body to the lobby to explain everything to the others. The scene then cuts to the hotel lobby, focusing on its grand, imposing chandelier. Back in the lobby, the entire group is gathered around the defeated enemy's body on the floor. The protagonist summarizes the situation, explaining how he tricked the spirit player and managed to counterattack. The businesswoman reveals they also found the bodies of the 3 missing players. With the spirit defeated, everyone is relieved, thanking the young man for allowing them to rest easy at night. But the young man with cat ears asks what he would have done if his plan hadn't worked out. He explains that if the spirit hadn't acted, everyone would have doubted him, as his fake rules would have been ignored. And if someone had been hurt, everyone would have united, drastically lowering the spirit player's chances of success. The young man continues his questioning, asking what would have happened if the spirit had been real, not a player. With a confident smirk, our hero shows he had already considered every possibility. He says that if the spirit were real, grouping up would have been easier, and in a worst-case scenario, they would have just returned to their rooms. With a smile, he states that either way, he wouldn't have broken the rules by staying together with them. The purple-haired young man gets angry, accusing him of being irresponsible and setting up a scenario where people could be eliminated. He then lets out a malicious laugh, glaring at the protagonist with pure rage and contempt. Our hero says the three bodies are proof enough and that he doesn't expect their trust, as he doesn't trust them either. The bald man then switches his allegiance, saying he believes him now that the spirit has been eliminated. He then suggests that since the threat is gone, they should discuss how to divide the spoils of war. He repeats his suggestion, moving closer to the group to try and win them over. The protagonist then picks up the spirit's mask, asking if this is what he's talking about. With a look of contempt, he asks if the man wants the mask to cover his shameless face. The bald man is completely stunned and speechless at the insult. He then becomes enraged, accusing the protagonist of being a cannibal player who used false information. The purple-haired young man tries to de-escalate, saying it's not yet confirmed if he's a cannibal. He then suggests the spirit's item be held by someone everyone trusts for safekeeping. Our hero is suspicious, asking who this trustworthy person might be. The young man says it's for everyone's safety, and the bald man agrees it should be the least threatening person. Fan Xiao then tosses the mask to the purple-haired young man, saying he seems the most suitable. But as he catches it, a system screen warns that the item is exclusive and cannot be used by him. The bald man is furious he didn't warn them, and the protagonist retorts that watching them squabble was like a monkey show. The man then states that while the spirit threat is gone, the danger of cannibal players remains. He points at our hero, accusing him of being a cannibal who will attack them in the coming nights. With that, he urges everyone to unite and eliminate the danger once and for all. Fan Xiao smiles wickedly, thinking he needed to add more fuel to the fire to expose the cannibals. The bald man shouts that the young man's true intentions have finally been laid bare. But before he can finish, a spear erupts from his chest, leaving everyone shocked. The weapon originated from the quiet young man's outfit, a magical item called 100 Changes Magic Clothes. The screen explains the clothes are made of a special metal that can freely change shape and color. The young man transforms into a warrior, saying that since they attacked first, he no longer needs to pretend. It's explained the item is for both offense and defense, as hard as steel and as tough as a bulletproof vest. With a wicked smile, he reveals himself as one of the cannibals, along with the businesswoman and the purple-haired man. He then orders the other two to attack so they can feast for the next few days. Our protagonist is completely shocked by this sudden revelation and betrayal. The businesswoman shouts that they are all cannibals, and the purple-haired man confirms it. Fan Xiao then asks if they know each other. The young man explains he suspected the tattooed man and decided to test him. He declares it's now 3 of them against 4 of the others, and their chance of victory is solid. The tattooed man complains he's been hungry all day and can't wait for the feast to begin. He then readies himself for the attack, his eyes filled with hunger and malicious intent. The tattooed man lunges forward at high speed to initiate the confrontation. But suddenly, the businesswoman and the purple-haired man are stunned by an unexpected turn of events. Our hero appears before them, stating that unfortunately, today's banquet is cancelled. The tattooed man freezes mid-attack as everyone notices a small black bird in the woman's hand. The young warrior is confused, asking what the protagonist means by that. With a smile, he reveals his player code, announcing he is in fact a white name player. The tattooed man becomes furious, shouting that he dared to deceive them with a fake identity. Duru then vouches for him, guaranteeing he is human, and that was all part of his strategy. The young man with cat ears also expresses his trust and prepares to fight alongside him. The businesswoman brandishes a whip, saying they can chat later. For now, they must deal with the cannibals. The young warrior gets angry and charges forward, yelling he will make our hero pay for his deception. The protagonist aims his blood crossbow at the enemy, readying for combat. The young warrior is undeterred, preparing to block the attack with his energy spear. With a swift movement, he successfully blocks the blood arrow, which explodes on impact with his defense. The arrow shatters, and the enemy manages to shield himself from the surprise attack. But the young warrior presses on, advancing with an energy hammer for a powerful, direct assault. Suddenly, the businesswoman appears behind him, preparing to strike with her whip. She activates her Queen's Domain ability, and a powerful pink aura envelopes her. With a flick of her wrist, she sends the enemy flying into the air with her whip, leaving him vulnerable. With a wicked smile, the woman lashes out with her leather whip at the airborne warrior. The young man is terrified, with no way to defend against the incoming blow. The whip strikes him squarely with immense force, dealing heavy damage and slamming him to the ground. The businesswoman continues to whip the enemy relentlessly, giving him no chance to recover. Our hero observes the scene, noting that while the armor blocked his arrow, it couldn't negate the whip's impact. Elsewhere in the battle, the tattooed man and the man with cat ears are trading blows at high speed. The cannibal grows furious as the other player faces him with a look of grim determination. Thanks to his cat ears, he deftly dodges the enemy's attacks with precision and agility. Duruo then joins the fray, attacking the tattooed man with his sharp, powerful sword. He and the young man with cat ears declare that the cannibal's opponents are now them, not the protagonist. The tattooed man complains about being tricked, realizing it's now 5 against 2, with the odds stacked against them. Our hero watches the battle, thinking that the strength of the Bureau of Special Affairs is quite reliable. Suddenly, the purple-haired man approaches the injured bald man on the ground, who begs to be saved. But the young man states he can't be saved and is about to be eliminated anyway. With a cold gaze, he says that since he's going to be eliminated, it's better for him to take his items than the enemy. The bald man is horrified by the purple-haired man's intentions and tries to crawl away. He pleads with the young man not to do it, but he shows no mercy or compassion. In a swift motion, he eliminates the man, saying not to worry, because he will avenge him. The businesswoman is shocked, asking what he's doing, and he replies it's for the greater good. She is furious at his actions and glares at him with anger and disapproval. The young warrior then gets up, saying his brother can't break the hero's magnetic item. He turns to the protagonist, questioning why he's fighting to the end instead of surrendering. The young warrior transforms into a giant monster and roars for the protagonist to shut up. He then charges towards the purple-haired man, declaring he will be the first to go. The young man uses his rapid running shoes to dodge the attack and flee from the giant monster. With a wicked grin, the monster watches him, preparing its next attack with its spear. He hurls the weapon, which pierces the young man's leg, leaving him injured and unable to run. The monster closes in, remarking that the rank of his shoes isn't very high and that he'll be taking them. Our hero notices that a piece of the metal armor has broken off from the main body, seeing his chance. With a swift movement, he activates his blood power and prepares for a decisive counterattack. 3 blood arrows materialize and shoot at high speed toward the giant monster. The arrows strike the enemy squarely in the back, catching him completely off guard. The monster is confused as it felt no pain from the arrow's impact. It turns and looks down at its chest but can't comprehend what is happening. Suddenly, its body begins to swell uncontrollably, and it becomes utterly terrified. Our hero watches from a distance, saying he has finally found him amidst the chaos. The monster then turns to the protagonist, recognizing him as the cause of its condition. With a wicked smile, the young man simply watches as the enemy's body prepares to detonate. A massive explosion erupts, and the monster is completely annihilated in a burst of power. The tattooed man is shocked by the scene, and Duru seizes the distraction to attack him from behind. He uses his sword to strike the enemy, who is still reeling from the explosion. The sword pierces the tattooed man's chest, leaving him stunned and unable to process what hit him. With the battle concluded, the lobby falls silent as the bodies of the defeated enemies slump to the floor. The purple-haired young man crawls to our hero, begging him to save him from being eliminated. But the protagonist says he can't be saved and that his time is almost up anyway. With a smile, he asks if the phrase sounds familiar and states he won't take him out of humanitarian principle. The young man is shocked by the word as the businesswoman approaches to observe. She remarks that the protagonist's moral standards are higher than those of the dying man. With his last breath, the young man curses them all, saying there are many who prey on others. The businesswoman smiles, saying she prefers people with strategy and courage like the protagonist. Our hero smiles back and she comments that he truly is a clever, semi-human player. With the first day's dangers resolved, Duru and the young man with cat ears celebrate their victory. Duru comments that the mission devolved into a game of werewolf, and the woman adds that the spirit item gave the cannibals an unfair advantage. The agent congratulates him on his fishing strategy, noting that his score for this dungeon will be high. With the mission seemingly concluded, the businesswoman suggests they introduce themselves formally. She introduces herself as Yan Kinning, saying she could be considered the group's businesswoman. Duru introduces himself, and the young man with cat ears gives his name as Chuya. Our hero then gives a fake name, Fanjan, and the group falls silent for a moment. Yan Kinning looks at him and says that petty men often lose great opportunities in life. With a smile, he reveals his real name, Fan Xiao, and says he's in the same line of work as Duru. The other two also reveal they're from the same sector, and the woman remarks it seems they were destined to meet. The agent explains it's common for people from the same sector to meet in ranky dungeons like this one. He then asks if the others know about the Bureau of Special Affairs, leaving them confused. He explains it's a national department tasked with handling incidents involving players and evolved ones. Duru then hands them his card, inviting them to join the agency for additional benefits. The woman takes the card, suggesting they get to know each other better and perhaps tackle a dungeon together. The protagonist asks if the instance is over, but he explains the spirit's item is exclusive. He concludes they should be able to complete the mission after spending 2 more days in the hotel. 2 days later, the scene shifts to the space-time train station where their mission began. The system then announces that the auspicious hotel instance is officially closed for all participants. The player evaluations are displayed. Our hero receives an A grade while Duru gets a B. The other two receive a C grade, and he muses that with so many players having animal ears, it feels like a zoo. Next, the dungeon rewards are distributed among the 4 surviving players. He receives various items, potions, and game coins, along with a special reward, a rank D item. The new item is the Antidote Master, an earring that grants him immunity to all rank D and E poisons. He realizes the item is passive, meaning poison immunity has become a permanent attribute for him. The system warns him that rank E players can only equip 3 fixed items, any excess must be discarded. He then asks if anyone wants an item, as he needs to get rid of one to equip the new one. Duru laughs, and the woman is surprised by the item limit as he tells them not to look at him. The agent says an item like the doorknob isn't suitable for him and declines the protagonist's offer. The other two also refuse, and he concludes that, as expected, nobody wants the item. He confirms the item's recycling, and the system converts it into 10,000 game coins. His player panel updates, showing a significant increase in his items and evolution rate. He notices the evolution rate increased by a smaller margin and wonders if the body develops a resistance to the potion. He concludes he can only test this theory the next time he acquires new potions. Back on the train, he notices the time flow within the dungeon isn't consistent, as the date is different. On his phone, he sees 3 missed calls from Liu Beiji and thinks the girl is very considerate. In a group chat, he announces his return, and Liu Xinning asks if his identity was exposed. He replies that he's not concerned, as he never intended to hide his identity anyway. The girl is relieved to hear it wasn't her fault and takes a deep, calming breath. She then asks if he entered a dungeon, and the young man confirms he just got out of one. Liu Xinning offers to buy his intel, but the protagonist says he'll provide it for free. He then sends a 20-megabyte file containing all the information he gathered in the dungeon. The younger sister is shocked to learn about werewolf-style dungeons and how brutal they are. The older sister praises his strategy, asking if he isn't afraid of enemies coming at him with full force. He explains that fishing is about luring out those with malicious intent, and he only did it because he was confident of victory. Our hero then asks what the two of them are up to, and Liu Beiji says she's exercising. She explains that the evolution rate only reflects basic strength. She needs to train to unlock her full potential. Liu Xinning reveals she's doing her younger sister's homework to help her pass the year. The girl says her sister's academic foundation is solid, and her luck makes up for the study time she loses to training. He thinks to himself that he won't tell them about his luck accumulation, not wanting to be a bad influence. They agree to meet up later, and the protagonist says he has other things to attend to. Back at his house, the young man is eating spicy food and starts choking on the intense seasoning. On a thoroughly messy table, his accumulated luck value reaches 120 out of 200. At a restaurant, a waitress complains that the ingredients he left behind exceed the allowed limit. When he tries to pay the bill, his phone's QR code scanner fails due to a poor network connection. The waitress asks him to pay with cash, and he reaches into his pocket for his wallet. Our hero then realizes he's on the 7th day of accumulating bad luck, and its effects are now noticeable. He thinks it's time to activate level 2 alert status and be wary of potential disasters. Suddenly, his phone rings and he answers to see what his mother wants. He answers the call asking what his mother needs and why she's calling. His mother invites him for dinner, mentioning it's been 2 months since his last visit. He declines the invitation, and his mother offers to get him a better job at his uncle's company. The young man refuses, saying he likes his current job and doesn't want to change careers right now. He then recalls his mother's wedding and how he spent a month's worth of luck to ensure her happiness. With a smile, he thinks that their lives are happy and stable, so he has nothing to worry about. He also reflects that he prefers living alone to avoid harming those around him while accumulating luck. His mother then insists he needs treatment for his illness, and says she has scheduled an appointment with a new psychologist for him. The protagonist hangs up and, with a sigh, decides he needs to deal with the oil stain on his shirt. He heads to a nearby shopping center to find a restroom and clean his clothes. In the restroom, he recalls how at age 13, he fell down a flight of stairs and hit his head hard. He wonders if his brain was damaged, because afterward a hazy extra memory surfaced. The memory was of an older sister who was very caring and always looked out for him. He went to the hospital multiple times, but every test showed his physical condition was perfectly normal. From this, he concluded the issue wasn't physical but psychological and began seeking therapy. He started seeing psychologists regularly and taking medication to treat the problem. At age 14, he discovered he could control his good and bad luck, and everything clicked. He realized he wasn't just unlucky, but an individual with a special superpower. Upon using his luck to normalize his brain, he found that the memory was real, not a delusion. With a new theory, he thinks his erased memory might be the work of players from other sectors. He concludes that to survive and uncover the truth, he must continue participating in the evolution game. He decides to go to the psychologist to appease his mother and avoid further complications. The psychologist welcomes him, saying he has familiarized himself with his case, and there's no need to worry. He explains that having an extra memory isn't unbelievable, and that his condition is psychological. The doctor states that many psychological issues stem from unresolved problems from one's childhood and upbringing. The protagonist listens intently as the psychologist explains the potential origin of his problem. He confirms that the sister in his memory was very good at taking care of him and was always attentive. The psychologist says therein lies the problem. He fantasized about a sister to compensate for his parents' shortcomings. He explains the treatment must address the root cause, and he needs to accept reality. The doctor says the process will require both medication and psychological counseling to be effective. With that, he offers the young man a cup of water, preparing to begin the first session. But as he drinks the water, our hero tastes something strange, putting him on high alert. His antidote master item activates, and he realizes the tea has been drugged by the doctor. However, he has no fear of poison and decides to drink it to identify the substance used against him. He recognizes the taste of truth serum and wonders why a psychologist would administer it. He confirms this is an artificial disaster and decides to play along to see what the doctor is after. The psychologist then asks if, aside from the memory, any other problems are currently bothering him. The young man confirms he has many, and the doctor prompts him to explain. He begins by recounting how everything he does succeeds, and how he won the lottery on his very first try. The doctor interrupts, wondering if the young man is some kind of chosen one who's just boosting. He then asks a series of questions about increased appetite, aggression towards animals, and enhanced strength, but the answers are all no. The psychologist concludes it was just a fluke, and the patient is an ordinary guy, not the target he was seeking. But suddenly the protagonist drops the key phrase anemic earring, and the doctor tenses up. In a swift motion, the young man uses his blood power to create a cut on the psychologist's face. The doctor is completely shocked by the surprise attack, unable to comprehend what just happened. The psychologist, completely startled by the cut on his face, then asks what that is. Our hero just smirks and makes a finger gun gesture at the doctor. Seeing this, the man recognizes the young man's earring and realizes he's also a player in the game. Suddenly, the doctor is hit with a splitting headache and intense dizziness, starting to feel terribly unwell. He then collapses to the floor, powerless, wondering if this is an effect of the young man's item. Fan Xiao grabs him by the collar and demands to know if Dr. Cheng is also a player. Next, he forces him to drink the rest of the truth serum still in the paper cup. The doctor tries to resist and deny everything, but our hero's strength is far greater than his. Noticing his resistance, the young man says he's going to increase the intensity of the truth serum. Under the substance's effect, the man's eyes turn completely black, and Fan Xiao releases his hold. The protagonist interrogates him, and the doctor admits he's an E-rank player searching for others. He reveals that his group also targets evolved individuals, and that an organization is behind it all. The man explains they take advantage of evolved people and players seeking psychological help. Our hero puts the pieces together and concludes it's not the Bureau, but a player-run organization. He then pulls out his phone, thinking the Bureau of Special Affairs needs to hear this interrogation. Fan Xiao asks about their purpose, and the doctor replies that it's to use them like livestock. They use items to control the families, forcing them to hand over dungeon rewards. The young man then asks what kind of special item they use for that level of control. The doctor says it's a D-rank item that can control people and eliminate them with an illness. The man confirms their boss is D-rank, and that out of the 4 people he found, 2 were taken out. Fan Xiao figures this type of exploitation isn't surprising and can be found everywhere. At that, he asks if the organization has other methods for finding players. The doctor reveals that in E-rank dungeons, they act friendly to get other players' contact information. Our hero thinks his bad luck has set a new record for stumbling into a situation like this. He asks how many members there are, and the man says there are 6 official members and 12 being farmed. With the information gathered, he stops the recording, saying the evidence for the Bureau ends there. With a mischievous grin, the young man says it's now time to handle his own personal business. He moves closer and asks the psychologist what items he possesses and their effects. The man reveals he has 3 E-rank items: a shock baton, a whip, and a doll. The protagonist then orders him to hand over all his items for free, but the doctor stays silent. Suddenly, the serum's effect wears off, and the man shouts the name of one of his items to attack. He strikes with his whip, but our hero manages to dodge the blow by a hair's breadth. Fan Xiao smiles, amused that the doctor's first instinct upon regaining his senses was to use an item. The man glares at him angrily, saying he has no talent and is just a powerless player. In response, our hero simply snaps his fingers with a confident and tranquil gaze. In that instant, the doctor's body begins to tremble as he feels an immense, paralyzing pain. The young man reminds him that he can make his blood erupt at any moment with a single thought. He then eases his control and tells the doctor to hand over the 2 remaining items. The psychologist yells that he accepts defeat but absolutely refuses to give up his items. Our protagonist is surprised, commenting that he's found someone who truly isn't afraid of being taken out. The protagonist then uses his power and the doctor's hand starts to dissolve in a flash of red energy. Desperate, the man shouts that this isn't what he wanted and that he'll give up everything if the young man guarantees his life. Our hero just smirks, the blood energy swirling in his hand as he listens to the man's proposition. The doctor pleads not to be eliminated, saying he has a win-win proposal. The young man then asks why he's so nervous, since he never said he was going to take him out. He states that he doesn't care about the items, as they are useless and can only be sold for coins. The doctor then asks what he plans to do, and the young man replies that for an outlaw, he'll call the police. The protagonist shows the evidence he recorded, saying he'll contact the Bureau to handle his case. But he sets a condition: hand over the items, or he'll eliminate him and claim it was in self-defense. The man asks why he wants the items if he disliked them, and the young man replies that it's better than nothing. Our hero then gives him 10 seconds to think, and the doctor desperately offers to introduce him to the boss. He claims the boss is strong and would welcome him into the organization so they could enjoy everything together. The protagonist ignores the offer and continues the countdown, saying 6 seconds remain. The man tries to tempt him with the idea of power and wealth, comparing him to capitalists and their rapid growth. But the young man is unfazed and continues the count, sending the doctor into a full panic. Defeated, the psychologist finally caves and promises to hand over all of his items. Our hero congratulates him on his choice, saying he'll get to live for a few more days this way. The scene then shifts to the outside of Dr. Cheng's psychological clinic. The protagonist glances out the window, hears approaching police sirens, and says, "They're here." The police raid the location, and one officer asks if the young man is cursed for always finding trouble. Duru arrives and teases the protagonist, asking how he gets into messes so quickly. The young man replies that his bad luck is only for criminals, and that his own luck is actually great. The agent then inquires about Fanchia's mental state since he was there for a session. With a smile, he says there's a problem. He can't stop thinking about how to reel in more criminals. Duru is surprised he called the bureau, and the young man explains he wanted to see their power firsthand. The captain mentions his promotion, and our hero questions if it's tied to his player level. The agent then reveals he became a D-rank player after the hotel dungeon they were in. The protagonist asks what changes with the new rank, and Duru explains it's the scope of activity. E-rank players are restricted, but D-rank players have no limitations and can choose their own path. After a dungeon, they can leave the mission space and enter the world where it was located. The young man wonders what these worlds are like. Imagine if they are utopias or magical realms. The agent reveals the world he visited was anything but beautiful and seemed like a very chaotic place. Their social order had collapsed, and high-level players became kings while ordinary people suffered. But he adds that some world partitions are different, fully and harmoniously integrated with the game. Fanchiao hopes his world becomes like that and asks how many dungeons it takes to reach D rank. The agent says it depends on the grade. With 3 consecutive A grades, it's possible to rank up in 3 dungeons. A woman then approaches and thanks him for the report she received on the doctor's case. She informs the protagonist that Dr. Cheng has been taken into custody and the other members will be tracked down. Duru says his goodbyes, stating his future performance depends on the young man and to call him next time. The captain is then dragged away by his assistant while enthusiastically waving goodbye to Fanchiao. Back in his apartment, the system announces that the Sunny doll item was successfully recovered. He then sees that the shock baton and whip exceed regulations and are unusable for him. Because of this, he decides to store the items in his reserve space to potentially trade with other players. Suddenly, his phone starts ringing, and the young man sees it's a message from Lu Beiji. The girl lets him know that she and her sister will arrive in Anqing at noon, and he offers to pick them up. With a confident smile, he says he'll get them and that he needs their help with a little something. The scene then cuts to the city airport's parking lot, where he's waiting for the 2 sisters. Seeing it's already noon, he decides to temporarily disable his luck accumulation to let things return to normal. He figures the accumulated luck will remain and he can continue gathering it after they're gone. While waiting patiently, he notices the 2 girls arriving and looks in their direction. The 2 sisters greet him, and he notices the bunny ears on Lu Beiji's outfit. He offers to buy lunch, and the young woman asks for a recommendation since they don't know the city. The protagonist says he knows a good spot and invites them both to get in his car. As Lu Jining gets in, he finds her clothes unusual and wonders about her fashion choice. The young man then has a moment of clarity, and a suspicion begins to form in his mind. He asks if their clothes are game items, and the girl confirms she wouldn't dress like this by choice. She explains the skirt is very convenient, with a self-cleaning function and the ability to shrink her dolls. One of her dolls that weighed 250 kilograms now weighs almost nothing, and he finds the items bizarre. Once in the car, he says they'll eat and explore, which Lu Jining finds odd, since they aren't heading to the dungeon. The protagonist then turns to the younger sister and says that he actually needs her specific assistance. Now at the restaurant, Lu Jining is utterly shocked by what the protagonist just told her. She understands he wants to test if her sister's luck can counteract a bad luck item he possesses. The girl then asks why he would keep a cursed item like that instead of just tossing it. The young man explains that items affecting causality are rare and can be useful in specific situations. She thinks it's a waste of space, but tells him to ask her sister about it directly. The young woman agrees immediately and asks what she needs to do to help her friend with this task. He tells her to just follow him and silently cheer for him, and she accepts without hesitation. The young man reflects that he started accumulating bad luck at the start of the meal, yet nothing bad has occurred. The older sister then remembers the other 2 items he mentioned and asks what they are. He shows them the shock baton and the whip, leaving the girls with expressions of disgust and surprise. The protagonist tells them not to give him that look, because the items are practical despite their names. Lu Jining asks for the shock baton for her puppet, and the young man inquires about the mysterious whip. The younger one says the other item is perfect for her, as it complements her poison item. She explains that with the whip, she can restrain enemies while her poison takes effect on the target. The older sister becomes furious with the girl's casual attitude and calls her out with a dark glare. She scolds her younger sibling for so easily revealing information about her items to others. The young man mentions that besides the bad luck item, he has another one that needs her ability for testing. He reveals his blood control item and explains he needs her healing talent to cooperate. The young man notices that since she arrived, no disasters have happened and hands the items to them. But the moment they step out of the restaurant, a torrential downpour suddenly begins. Lu Jining is startled by a loud noise and asks if it's the young man's bad luck item kicking in. Abruptly, an explosion sends someone flying in the restaurant, destroying everything in their path. Our hero is stunned to see who is thrown into the establishment with such incredible force. The person on the floor is Wu Yan, Captain Duru's assistant, and she appears badly injured. He rushes to help her, telling the sisters the woman is from the Bureau of Special Affairs. The protagonist then holds her in his arms, trying to process what just happened. He asks what went down, and the agent reveals that troublemakers from the Korea group attacked her. Just then, a voice from outside scoffs at the bureau, saying they aren't so tough. A muscular man then leaps toward them, shouting for the fool there to get ready to be taken out. With a serious expression and glowing eyes, our hero prepares to intercept the enemy's assault. In a swift motion, he lands a powerful punch right in the muscular man's stomach. The attacker doubles over in pain, astonished by the force of the blow he just received. The impact sends him flying backward, crashing through a wall and onto the restaurant floor. The enemy gets up, introduces himself as X from the Korea group, and calls the young man an insect. The protagonist realizes the man is stronger than him and suspects a hidden ability. Seeing this unfold, the younger sister grows worried for her friend Fan Xiao's safety. She then activates her bond of affection item, and a glowing rope materializes in her hands. The rope binds the man from the Korea group, who complains about falling into another ambush. He struggles against the restraints, but the rope tightens, causing pain and immobilizing him. The girl then realizes something is wrong, saying the situation has suddenly taken a turn for the worse. Lu Xining shouts for her sister to fall back, saying she'll handle it while the younger one tries to retrieve her item. The girl then grabs one of her small cloth dolls, bracing for the impending battle. Using her ability, she transforms it into a large metal puppet that soars toward the enemy. She then orders the puppet to finish him with an electric shock from the baton she acquired earlier. The man from the Korea group manages to dodge the attack, which strikes the ground and shatters it with the discharge. The puppet persists, advancing on the enemy again to strike him with the baton. Suddenly, 3 puppets appear, electrocuting him from all sides without a moment's pause. The man screams in pain but recognizes the puppets, asking if they belong to Zheng Xiao. One of the puppets readies a final blow while the enemy is still stunned from the shocks. A voice then yells for the puppet to eliminate him once and for all, without any mercy. The puppets then assault him with a flurry of strikes, piercing his body in multiple places. The man collapses completely defeated as the puppets gather around him victoriously. Lu Xining then commands her puppets to recover and prepare for the next phase of the fight. But suddenly a dark aura envelops them, and several figures materialize, frightening the sisters. Our hero senses the imminent danger and stays on high alert for the new threat that has emerged. He says the situation doesn't look good and suggests they leave the area immediately. An intense light surrounds them, and everyone is teleported far away from the chaotic restaurant. The scene then cuts to a deserted island in the middle of the ocean, a very isolated and remote place. The 4 of them materialize on the island's beach, still disoriented from the sudden teleportation. The protagonist wonders what happened and why his location changed so drastically. He realizes this is no simple illusion and decides to deactivate his luck accumulation. The young man then turns to the 2 sisters who were with him in the destroyed restaurant. He apologizes for the emergency, but the younger one insists it's fine and not a problem. The bureau agent approaches, saying she'll explain what happened to them all later. She points toward the beach and says their priority now is to eliminate their common enemy. On the beach, 2 groups are facing off: the bureau, led by Duro, and Korea, led by Liu Sheng. The captain is surprised to see our hero was also teleported to this location. The Korea boss deduces that Duro is the bureau's leader and a D-rank player with powerful items. Liu Sheng is surprised to see the government already has a fully formed player organization. Duro then spots the protagonist and gets annoyed at having to run into that unlucky guy again. The Korea boss suggests they pause the fighting for a moment to resolve the situation. The captain thinks that with the young man present, their chances of victory are much higher and decides to agree. But a member of the Korea group attacks him with an item called the Toothpick of Fury. A volley of projectiles is fired toward the bureau's group in a swift surprise attack. The Korea boss then activates a shield to protect himself from his own allies' unexpected strike. The man who attacked becomes furious seeing his own boss block his treacherous blow. Liu Sheng glares at him and asks if that's his way of saying negotiations are over. On the other side, a bureau agent prepares a counter-attack with his arrow of light. The golden arrow flies at high speed toward the Korea organization leader's shield. The boss watches the attack approach his shield, bracing for the arrow's impact. The attack shatters the boss's shield and hits him squarely with devastating and lethal force. The man screams in pain as he's engulfed by the golden explosion from the arrow. On the other side, a Korea member readies an attack with his red energy staff. The bureau agent is startled to see the enemy's weapon materialize in his hand. The man then uses his crimson staff to unleash a powerful wave of destructive energy. The captain yells for his men to scatter to avoid the incoming attack. A massive explosion erupts, sending several agents flying from the force of the magic. Duru manages to shield himself but sees the situation growing increasingly complicated for them. He then unsheathes his dark sword and prepares to fight with everything he has. The man with the staff attacks him with a barrage of high-speed fire blades. The captain manages to dodge the blades while advancing to engage his opponent directly. The agent then uses an orb of infernal fire to create a massive energy blast. Duro focuses and uses his sword to slice through the flames, protecting himself from the fiery explosion. He realizes the enemy is faster and can breach his defense, meaning he'll be taken out soon. The Korea boss shouts that they forced his hand and prepares for another assault. He then rushes toward Duro with incredible speed, ready to strike. Liu Sheng orders Zhu Ji to entangle him first so he can prepare his final attack. Zhu Ji then activates his socially awesome syndrome, Talon, and locks eyes with the bureau captain. A purple light emanates from his eyes, and the agent is taken aback by what's happening. Suddenly, he loses control of his limbs and realizes he's been caught in a control ability. Zhuji notices the captain looked at him, and the man with the staff seizes the opportunity. He backs away, formulating a strategy to defeat the bureau agent while he's vulnerable. He then glances at the protagonist group and assumes they're ordinary people caught in the crossfire. With a sinister smile, he decides to eliminate some and keep others as hostages for later. But suddenly, Duru spits out something black and breaks free from the mental control binding him. The captain then strikes Zhuji with a powerful knee, surprising the man with his speed. Meanwhile, the man with the staff and another from Korea advance to attack our hero and his party. Fan Xiao activates his anemic earring, and a blood dagger materializes in his right hand. The scene cuts to the island's forest, where the battle between the two factions rages on. Suddenly, several werewolf-like monsters burst from the woods and attack the players. Our protagonist and the two sisters observe the new threat that has emerged amidst the battle. The Korea group members are also taken by surprise by the monsters' unexpected arrival on the island. The younger one asks if they are the monsters from the selection dungeon, and her sister clarifies they are evolved humans. Lu Xining tells her sister to stay close as she readies her puppets for a fight. She then summons a giant bear in a maid outfit to combat the newly appeared monsters. Duru compliments the girl's puppet control technique and realizes they are now surrounded by the creatures. The man with the staff yells at his allies for being distracted and orders them to focus on the battle. Our hero knows he needs to eliminate the root of the problem to protect his family in the future. With a determined gaze, he declares that he must eliminate every single enemy right here and now. He then charges toward the man with the staff, and an ally shouts for the boss to be careful. The Korea leader is surprised to see the young man as a player and not just an ordinary person. Our hero says the enemy may be D rank, but in his eyes, the man is already toast. He then summons his assassin angel, who materializes behind him with a smile and glowing red eyes. The man with the staff attempts an attack, but the angel appears before him, stopping him with a single motion. With a simple touch, she strikes him with an overwhelming power that instantly defeats him. The angel then moves toward the other Korea ally, eliminating him just as quickly and lethally. With a satisfied smile, the protagonist watches his angel effortlessly dispatch the enemies. She then creates a massive explosion, taking out both Korea members at once. The two sisters observe the scene, commenting that the young man's taste is odd, but his strength is undeniable. The Bureau agents are shocked by the blast and wonder who this powerful individual is. The Bureau players and the two sisters join forces to fight the monsters that have appeared on the island. Lu Xining uses her electrotherapy ability, striking the creatures with lightning and electrical discharges. The younger sister uses her bond to ensnare the monsters, preparing to use her poison on them. She successfully traps two of the creatures and readies the next phase of her combined attack. But our hero stops her, telling her to save her poison, because he will handle the remaining monsters. He then walks toward the last of the creatures with a terrifying calm and confidence. The protagonist summons his blood dagger and prepares to fight the monsters by himself. With his weapon in hand, he charges forward and begins eliminating the creatures with incredible speed. He moves through the monsters like a blur, leaving a trail of destruction and fallen foes. In the end, he stands amidst the remains of the creatures he just defeated so effortlessly. The camera focuses on the remnants of the creatures defeated by our hero on the island's beach. Duro is stunned by Fan Xiao's strength, wondering if he's truly an E-rank player. The assassin angel appears, noting there are more than 10 enemies, and that she wants to play with all of them. She sits on the young man's shoulder, saying she likes him a lot for always being so good to her. But she insists she hasn't had enough fun yet and wants to keep fighting and playing. With a mischievous look, the angel turns to the two sisters, saying she wants to play with them too. The protagonist scolds her, and the angel pouts, but he ignores her and proceeds with his plan. He says he still has 30 seconds and tells her to fly high and survey the island's terrain. From above, they spot a city in the middle of the island, complete with buildings and farmland. Our hero then orders the angel to circle the city for a better view. He finds it strange for a human city to exist on an island seemingly infested with monsters. Through his binoculars, he observes the surroundings and sees the same type of monsters he defeated earlier. The older sister asks if it's an isolated island, and the young man confirms there's a city with people. He says the odd thing is that monsters are everywhere, yet the city appears safe and untouched. The girl agrees it's abnormal and thinks that even with his strength, fighting so many monsters would be tough. She suggests heading to the city as it must be secure and they likely have defense methods. The protagonist says they need to cooperate with the Bureau, as they should have more information. He turns to the younger sister, who looks frightened by their current predicament. The young man reassures her, saying he's already cleared the nearby monsters and they'll be safe there. The girl thanks him and offers to pay for the items he gave her and her sister earlier. He replies that in exchange, she will have to stay by his side and assist him for a long time. The protagonist encourages her to have more confidence in herself and her unique abilities. He thinks her healing skills and luck attribute make her incredibly valuable. The older sister agrees to the deal but warns him not to take advantage of her younger sibling. She then asks Lu Beiji what she thinks of the proposal the young man just made. The girl replies that she has no problem with it and accepts to stay by the protagonist's side to help. With their cooperation settled, the young man declares it's time to divide the spoils of war. He presents the first item, a dustless shield, an E-rank item that looks like a necklace with a jewel. Legend says a mage created it to stay clean without needing to bath 10 times a day. The necklace generates a repulsion barrier that can even block sniper rounds and cannonballs. Next, he displays the magic clothes he took from one of the players defeated in battle. The younger sister remarks that the clothes would be useful for them since they can't afford to buy any. The older one then tells her to get a salary advance and buy the item from the young man. Suddenly, a notification appears stating the clothes in her absolute domain item are compatible for fusion. Our hero is surprised to learn that compatible items can be merged using coins. The younger sister insists the older one take the item, but she says she doesn't have the money. The protagonist then offers to advance her salary and the girl accepts his proposal. He then initiates the item fusion process to see what the combination will yield. The items merge and a golden light envelopes Lu Xinning, who is surprised by what's happening. She then transforms, appearing in a fairy tale dress with a completely new look. The system announces the fusion is complete and the item's rank has increased to D level. The transformation ability has been amplified, allowing her to turn more toys into accessories. Additionally, the item can now assume any appearance its owner desires at any time. The younger sister reveals that her older sibling loves cute things and enjoys dressing in them. The girl becomes embarrassed and scolds the younger one for oversharing her personal tastes. The young man asks if its defense has increased, but she explains it only self-repairs and is more convenient. Du-Ro and his group approach, and he apologizes for the delay in checking on the injured. The captain formally introduces himself to the two sisters as a member of the Bureau of Special Affairs. Our hero then introduces him as a trusted friend and also introduces the two girls. The younger sister notices Agent Wu Yan's injuries and goes over to help her. With a green glow in her hands, she begins to heal the Bureau agent's wounds. With a smile, the girl reveals that her special talent is the ability to heal. The other agents come closer, asking to be healed, and she agrees to help them one by one. The captain remarks that a healing talent is rare and asks what our hero wants to know. The young man asks what he saw while flying, and the agent offers to exchange information. Du-Ro says he knows why they were transferred here and that there's no issue with sharing intel. They seal the deal, and the protagonist suggests they move as their current spot isn't safe for a discussion. He reveals he's already planned a route with fewer monsters and that they can leave immediately. As they walk, Du-Ro starts to explain the situation they're in on the island. The young man asks what's happening, and the agent explains that this place is an instance. Du-Ro clarifies that it's a random instance, a secret area that pulls nearby people into it. The girls glance back as the agent continues to explain the situation to everyone. He says that a return, they must wait for the instance to conclude for the portal to reopen. Our hero remembers the ticket he possesses, and the agent confirms that with it, he can return by train. The young man asks how to complete the instance without a mission, and Du-Ro says they have to activate it. The captain deduces the mission's location must be in the center of the human city they saw earlier. The scene then shows the city with its buildings and high walls in the center of the mysterious island. Lu Xinning comments that this means they might encounter other players in that city. The protagonist then shows his ticket, and the agent is surprised by the coincidence. He reveals it's for the Sacrificial Island, instance at the Stary Memory Corridor station. Du-Ro recalls that his last instance was in this very place, and that the world there was dreadful. The young man hopes the ticket matches the location so they can face the challenge together. He muses that low-level instances can harbor high-level dangers, but their missions are simpler. Fan Xiao then asks why they were fighting in the mall in broad daylight for everyone to see. The captain explains the arrest plan failed because the enemy group had a wide variety of items. The young man asks Lu Beiji about the mental toll of her healing, and the girl looks at him thoughtfully. She says it feels like half her energy is gone, and the protagonist offers some advice. He tells her not to use her talent anymore and to stay close, since she's his employee now. 2 hours later, they reach the outskirts of the city at the island's center, where the mission awaits. Our hero observes the ancient walls, finding it odd that the area seems so peaceful and devoid of monsters. Suddenly, a notification screen appears before all the players. The screen informs them that the Sacrificial Island instance has finally begun. The members of the Bureau of Special Affairs also receive the notification with surprise. The instance officially starts, and the island is shown in its entirety from high above. The history of Loki Island is told, a happy, prosperous place known for the delicious high fish. But the beauty was short-lived. Monsters appeared, turning the island into a desolate wasteland. The island's god then emerged, accepting sacrifices to protect the city and restore order. The instance missions are to either survive for 3 days or uncover the truth of Sacrificial Island. The captain confirms it is indeed Sacrificial Island, and our hero claims it was just a coincidence. Lu Xinning finds the survival instance problematic and wonders about the island's god. She speculates it might be a title, like the evil spirit from their previous instance. Du-Ro teases the protagonist about his relationship with the girl, but he insists they're just colleagues. The young woman says the main threat seems to be the island's god and its punishment. She concludes the real danger must come from something else, as the punishment only affects rule breakers. The captain agrees and tells everyone to stay vigilant, as the god could even be an ally. The protagonist suggests they split up to find shelter before nightfall to save time. The agent is wary of the plan, but the young man argues it's the most efficient way to gather intel. Duru notes it's 1:30 and they should reconvene at 6:30 to share information. Everyone agrees to the plan and prepares to set out and explore the city for shelter. The younger sister timidly asks if the three of them must stay together during the exploration. The older sister explains the rules force them to separate and that the real danger is at night. With a shy smile, the younger one says she was just wondering who she should spend the night with. She thinks that since he hired her, maybe she has to follow him inseparably, even through the night. The protagonist admits he hadn't thought that far ahead and just needs her to heal him during the day. He explains that for her safety, it's better they stick together so he can protect her. The older sister teases her sibling, saying she can't tell if she's in love or just incredibly honest. The young man then asks the girl to heal him while he creates some blood weapons just in case. He activates his anemic earrings and a red energy starts to glow from his right hand. The young woman then uses her healing talent on him as he crafts the blood weapons for the mission. After repeating the process several times, he tells her to stop and rest from the task. The girl says her spiritual power is at its limit, and her sister thanks her for her hard work. The protagonist thinks the blood weapons are excellent, and that skipping sleep won't be an issue. He then asks if she's found a place for them to stay, and she points to a house. They approach the house the girl chose, and the young man knocks on the door to ask for lodging. A little girl opens the door and looks at them with curiosity and a hint of suspicion. The girl's eyes widen upon seeing the strangers at her door, and she reacts unexpectedly. She yells that they aren't welcome and tells them to leave and find somewhere else to stay. The older sister wonders if the younger one's luck has finally failed, since her choices are usually good. Suddenly, a man appears and scolds the little girl for her attitude towards their visitors. He apologizes and invites them inside, saying they must be from out of town. The man explains that other outsiders have treated them poorly, which is why his daughter dislikes them. He says welcoming guests is an order from the spirits and sends his daughter to her room. The little girl obeys her father and goes upstairs with a sad expression on her face. He apologizes for the awkwardness, and the young man says her worriness is understandable. With a smile, our hero assures him that they are good people and easy to get along with. But in his mind, he knows that players are suspicious by nature, and even NPCs can't be trusted. The man says it's no trouble hosting them, as it's an island tradition given by the spirits. They sit at the table, and the host serves them a special island tea with a wonderful aroma. The two girls think he's bold for drinking something of unknown origin right after arriving. The protagonist asks how they can cultivate tea with so many monsters right outside the city. The man explains that to the north lies a plain where they grow tea and other crops to survive. He says the spirits protect them and gave them that land to farm and live on. The younger sister asks if they've ever considered leaving the island with so many monsters nearby. The host replies that with the spirits, they are safe, and the world outside is far too chaotic. Our hero's group listens to the man's explanation attentively, but with a hint of skepticism. Lu Beiji then asks if spirits are real and if the man has ever seen one himself. The man is taken aback by the question, his eyes widening with surprise and a touch of fear. He becomes irritated, insisting the Lord of the Spirits has always existed and protected them. Our hero intervenes, apologizing and saying the girl is young and just asked out of curiosity. The host calms down but warns them respect the spirits to avoid divine punishment. The protagonist introduces himself as Fanner to the host and asks the others to do the same. The two sisters introduce themselves as Jizzy and Doll, and the man finds the outsiders' names peculiar. The host then introduces himself as Luwendong and shakes the young man's hand, sealing their hospitality. He reveals he has hosted many outsiders and that a new group of people arrives from time to time. With a serious expression, our hero then asks if many of those outsiders end up departing. Angrily, the man retorts that they brought their own doom by disrespecting the spirit's rules. The young man's group takes in the warning as the host says not even he can save them if they break the rules. Fan Xiao asks what the other rules are, and the man says they are quite simple to follow. He explains they must find shelter, not attack the residents, and visit the shrine to pray for safety. The host warns that if they follow these 4 rules, there will be no trouble, and they should remember them. Lu Xining notices there's an extra rule compared to the game's official tips and grows suspicious. She thinks either the man is lying, or the extra rule is part of a test within the instance. The protagonist then asks if, among the previous outsiders, there were any with special abilities. The man asks if he means players, and our hero realizes he knows more than he's letting on. The host confirms that some outsiders treat the island as an instance and the god as a boss. With disdain, he calls them a bunch of lunatics for thinking such absurd things. He then looks at the group and asks if they, by any chance, are also that kind of player. A tense silence fills the air as the host awaits the group's response. The young man denies it and concocts a story to mislead the man and gain his trust. He claims they were suddenly transported here and encountered threatening people along the way. The host remarks that calling people with special abilities players is a very strange term. Our hero then asks if they are native to the island, and the man questions his reason for asking. The young man says he was just wondering if they had also been transported here and decided to settle. The host denies it, telling him not to worry and to just follow the rules to return in 3 days. The young man persists, saying he's heard the island is home to many different kinds of monsters. The man denies this, claiming they're just rumors spread by those who disrespect the island's spirit. Our hero glances around the house, finding it odd there are so many rooms for just a father and daughter. He senses the host doesn't want to answer any more questions and decides to change tactics. The older sister then asks about the island's sacrificial activities and if she can participate. The man becomes agitated, asking where she got such a crazy idea about sacrificial activities. He yells that the spirit helps them without asking for anything in return and that there are no sacrifices. The girl provokes him, pointing out that he himself mentioned daily worship and asking if he's not contradicting himself. The man flies into a rage, accusing her of insulting the spirit and threatening to throw them out. The protagonist steps in, saying his sister has some issues and that he should ignore her nonsense. The girl gets annoyed but holds her tongue, thinking she needs to endure it to get information. The host warns that speaking ill of the spirit has consequences and that he needs to control her. The young man changes the subject, asking if there are enough rooms for all of them in the house. He confirms there are rooms to spare and invites them to go up and pick one out. They head upstairs and the man says there are 5 guest rooms on the 2nd floor. He tells them they can stay for the next 3 days and choose any room they like. Our hero picks the room near the stairs, and the 2 sisters decide to take the one next to it. He then asks the host for directions to the shrine so they can visit before nightfall. The man offers to guide them to ensure their safety, since they don't know the rules. The protagonist declines the offer, saying they'll walk around a bit and visit other town residents. The host watches them leave with a serious and distrustful expression on his face. They exit the house and begin walking through the town as the sun sets at dusk. The older sister finds the host suspicious and suggests they visit other houses for comparison. The young man says they will likely all be similar, and in the end, they'll have to return there. He states that everything hinges on the younger one's luck, so her choice of house should be the most reliable. The older sister questions the basis of her sibling's judgment, and she replies it was pure intuition. She then asks if he wasn't afraid to drink the tea the man offered them earlier. He answers with a smile that there was nothing wrong with the tea, it was just an ordinary brew. The girl is skeptical and asks if he has a poison detection tool to be so certain. She scolds him for his recklessness, but he says it's fine because her sister is with him. He explains that with the younger sister as a teammate, it doesn't matter if his actions are risky. The older one still finds it reckless, but he clarifies that the host wouldn't try to drug them right away. The young woman says his recklessness doesn't matter, and the younger one offers to look after him. The protagonist decides to trust the girl's luck, and they head back to the host's house for the night. She asks if he's not good at reading micro-expressions, and if the host was lying to them. He replies that the man is suspicious but could be a skilled actor, so they need to remain vigilant. The younger sister points out it's already 3 in the afternoon, with only 3 hours left until their meeting. The young man stretches and says it's getting late, and they need to decide on a route soon. He suggests using the remaining time to visit other residents and gather more information about the island. They then set off to visit other houses and investigate the divine shrine in the center of town. They visit 6 houses and encounter similar situations, with all the residents being hospitable. But whenever the topic of the island's god came up, the residents became serious, even aggressive. They all denied the existence of any rituals, treating the subject as a taboo that couldn't be mentioned. The sun sets on the horizon, and the protagonist realizes the townspeople are hiding something. The younger one speculates the ritual activities are key to the island's truth, making them hard to investigate. The older sister laments the rule against attacking residents, and the younger one asks what she's planning. She clarifies she wouldn't go as far as interrogation, but notes the residents feel safe because of that rule. Our hero then says it's not impossible to threaten them, and that he has a way around the rule. The girl gets excited by the idea and asks what his plan is to get the information. He explains the rule only applies during the instance afterward. They'll be free to act as they please. She understands the plan, saying they can pose as D-rank players and threaten them after the event concludes. He suggests they test the plan on their host that night to avoid causing a stir in the town. The younger sister thinks that's going too far, since the man offered them a place to stay. The older one reassures her, saying it will only be verbal threats and they can't actually harm them. Our hero tells her not to feel guilty, as they might just be on the side of justice in this story. The younger one remains worried about the plan, but the older one calms her, saying everything will be fine. The younger sister questions if the host didn't have good intentions by letting them stay. Our hero recalls the man's daughter, who tried to send them away the moment they opened the door. He recounts the moment the little girl shouted for them to get out of her house. The older sister finds the father's explanation plausible, since players can indeed be very troublesome. Suddenly, she has an epiphany, realizing a crucial detail in the little girl's behavior. The protagonist agrees, adding that since she didn't explain herself, there's another possibility for her actions. With a serious look, he reveals his theory the girl wasn't trying to expel them, but to help them. He then considers that perhaps that was the younger sister's luck at work, protecting them. The older sister says they should go to the Divine Temple, since other residents confirmed the 4th rule. They then head toward the temple, and the protagonist says they need to investigate it before nightfall. The central Divine Temple stands in the middle of the city, an imposing and ancient structure. The young man approaches the temple door and pushes it open carefully to see what's inside. The doors swing open slowly, revealing a bright and mysterious interior for them to explore. They enter to find a grand hall with an imposing statue at its center. Our hero is taken aback by the sight, his eyes widening at the impressive scene. He deduces this must be the statue of the island's god, the one the residents revere so deeply. The young man assesses the temple and concludes it must be over 30 years old, and the god as well. He thinks nothing seems out of place, and that it appears to be just an ordinary, ancient temple. The older sister points out they can't confirm the fourth rule just by looking at the temple. The protagonist then sits down, concluding that the best course of action is to not go out at night. The younger sister asks for the basis of his judgment, and the older one concurs with his conclusion. He explains that the game's hint to find shelter before dark suggests the night is dangerous. Furthermore, he finds it odd that only outsiders are required to go to the temple to pray at night. He recalls the host's reaction when questioned about the sacred island's spirits. The young man concludes the residents are deliberately trying to trick them into going out at night. The older sister agrees, adding that the host's daughter's behavior suggests interacting with him is dangerous. The younger one argues it's all just speculation and they have no solid evidence. Our hero states that one thing is certain: residents can lie, but the game's hints cannot. He concludes the residents are the real threat, and they need to be extremely careful around them. The camera focuses on the statue of the island's god as the young man fleshes out his theory. He proposes that the outsiders are the sacrifices, and the residents want to offer them to their god. The younger sister suggests using her luck to decide and flips a coin high into the temple air. The coin spins as they await the result that will guide their final decision on the rule. He then snatches the coin from the air, revealing the result to the group watching intently. The result is tails, so they decide to ignore the residents' rule about going to the temple at night. The scene then cuts to nightfall in the city, the sky darkening as lights begin to flicker on. The older sister asks if he'd really trust a coin toss without analyzing the situation first. Suddenly, the younger one stumbles and warns him to watch out for something approaching. They look ahead and see a group of men walking their way with malicious intent. The men approach with serious, threatening glares, putting the protagonist's group on high alert. Our hero deduces they are either human players or cannibals, as they don't look like the residents. The older sister confronts them, telling them to get out of the way and let their group pass. One of the men smirks, asking if they found anything strange in the temple, since they're also players. She retorts that it's none of their business, but the man insists they can trade information. The protagonist then tells him to talk first, and they'll decide if his information is worth anything. The man laughs, saying the young man doesn't seem to grasp the situation he's in. He then yells that they are the ones qualified to set the rules, and that the young man can't demand a thing. The girl repeats her demand for them to get out of the way, and the men position themselves to attack. She prepares for a fight, warning that if they don't move, she won't be responsible for what happens next. The young woman thinks the best approach is a preemptive strike to avoid being caught off guard by bizarre items. One of the men likes her attitude, saying he wants to deal with the species girl later. She then tosses one of her dolls into the air, and the man is puzzled by the small, flying object. The doll flies toward them, and the man watches the tiny object slowly approach. Abruptly, the doll expands, transforming into a metal puppet ready for combat. The puppet then uses its baton to electrocute the leader of the opposing player group. The man screams in agony as he's zapped by the electric discharge from the puppet's baton. He collapses to the ground, writhing in pain, as his allies watch in stunned panic. The other players are shocked by the puppet's power and are unsure how to react to the assault. Suddenly, the younger sister cries out in pain, and the older one turns to see what happened. She sees the whip has slipped from her sister's grasp and realizes it's an item that prevents people from holding things. One of the men rushes forward and grabs the metal puppet, trying to immobilize it with his strength. With red eyes, he strains with all his might, finding the puppet surprisingly strong for a doll. He realizes the puppet is stronger than him and that he needs all his power just to contain it. He then yells for his allies to handle the others while he holds down the metal puppet. The other players then charge toward our hero and the two sisters to capture them. With a serious expression and a red aura, our hero prepares to intercept the enemy's charge. Using his blood power, he strikes one of the advancing men with a precise blow. The other two players are hit squarely by the blood energy and fall to the ground, defeated. The two foes lie on the ground as the protagonist stares them down with a cold, calm expression. He thinks that controlling their blood was the right move, attacking before they had a chance to react. Meanwhile, the puppet uses its power to break free from the man holding it so tightly. It creates a barrier, trapping the enemy inside while chanting magical words to activate its power. The man realizes he can no longer hold back the barrier and is about to be defeated by the puppet. His allies shout for him to run, but it's too late. The barrier closes in on him. The older sister then prepares to attack the other players with her doll manipulation. The two remaining men turn and run, trying to escape the battle they've just soundly lost. A giant teddy bear appears and begins chasing the two terrified, fleeing enemies. The two men are horrified to see the puppets and a ghost surrounding them from all sides. The puppets' shadows stretch across the ground, creating a terrifying scene for the enemies. One of the men falls to the ground, defeated, while the other continues to run desperately for his life. The man celebrates his speed, but suddenly feels something strange in his body. A purple aura envelopes him, and he realizes he's been hit by a powerful and lethal poison. The younger sister appears with her staff, revealing her Poison Master item with a smile. Desperate, the man tries to grab an antidote, but his item screen blurs and fails. The girl then uses her whip, ensnaring him with a passionate bond, to immobilize him. He is trapped in the glowing tethers as the poison begins to take effect. With blurred vision, he still clings to the hope of grabbing the antidote and surviving the dual attack. But the poison is too strong and he collapses, defeated with no chance of recovery. The scene shows the bodies of the enemy players scattered across the city street after the battle. The two group leaders lie on the ground side by side, completely defeated. The two sisters observe the bodies and see the players' IDs hovering above them. They confirm they were all cannibal players with malicious intent from the very beginning. Our hero explains this is common, as players living on the edge often become cruel. He says taking things and harming others becomes normal for them, and some turn to cannibalism when they can't resist. Over time, their morality erodes, and they become capable of anything to survive. The younger sister is frightened by this explanation and the brutality of the player's world. The protagonist then focuses his blood power, creating new weapons for them. He thinks that blood weapons are easy to use and can pierce through both walls and enemies. With a confident smile, he reveals he has prepared 13 blood weapons for the next fight. The older sister complains that she only got one broken item, surprising the young man. The younger sister wants to trade items with the older one, thinking her own item suits her better. She says the fumble item is potent because it prevents an enemy from holding things, disabling their attacks. The girl explains her strategy: poison, bind, and defend to defeat her enemies. With this combo, she believes her opponent won't stand a chance once the poison kicks in. She adds that fumble is an all-encompassing and can't block controlled items like his earring. With a devilish expression, she persuasively tries to convince her sister to trade items. The older sister eventually agrees to the trade to leverage the item's advantage in her battles. The young woman then notices her sister looking at the protagonist with a worried expression. She wonders if he'll think she's manipulative and treacherous because of this. The young man says he's already organized the loot, and they should head to the east gate to regroup with the bureau. The scene then cuts to dusk on the island, with an orange sky and silhouetted trees. The protagonist remarks that it's normal for other players to be here, as some must have used tickets to enter. He analyzes the island, deducing that the city gates are activation points for the dungeon's missions. The group then walks toward the city's east gate to meet the bureau agents. They arrive at the gate at 6:20 in the evening and find Du Ruo's group waiting. The captain and his team are surveying the area, ready to report their findings. He reveals they encountered 2 cannibal players en route, but managed to handle them. The younger sister is surprised to hear there are cannibal players at the east gate as well. The young man notes the high number of players in the dungeon, confirming the entire island is the game area. Du Ruo then reveals he also met 2 semi-human players at the north gate and spoke with them. Our hero jokes that the bureau must be rich, and the captain replies that they have plenty of resources. The protagonist suggests they exchange intel and reveals his suspicions about the residents' ill intentions. He advises against eating or drinking anything offered by the residents to avoid trouble. He also tells them to ignore the 4th rule and stay inside at night to avoid falling into a trap. The agent is surprised and asks if the rule about worship and prayer at the temple is really false. The young man says it's highly probable, adding that he noticed many empty houses in the city. The captain shares his information about the semi-human players he met at the North Gate. He reveals the dungeon belongs to the Gob O World sector, and the players were natives from there. The 2 semi-human players came from 2 different regions within the same world sector. The scene shows the city walls as Du Ruo continues his explanation to the group. He estimates that more than 2 regions are promoting immigration to the ritualistic island. Our hero questions the idea of immigration, given the chaotic, player-dominated world outside. He considers a secret connection between high-ranked players and the mysterious island. The young man recalls that the island was an excellent place for immigration before the monsters appeared. The scene shows a happy woman picking oranges in a sunny, peaceful field. But suddenly monsters appeared, destroying everything and throwing the island into chaos. The island's god then emerged and restored everything to normal, including the immigration policy. He notes the outside world is chaotic and no one wants to leave, which aligns with Du Ruo's account. He remembers the farms to the north and the host's explanation of life on the island. The protagonist concludes the host lied about the island's safety, and the empty houses are the proof. The older sister finds it strange there are so many vacant houses despite waves of immigration. The captain agrees, saying that with so many immigrants, the vacant houses should be filled easily. The girl suggests something happened on the island that eliminated many people without their knowledge. The agent asks what the protagonist is thinking about the island's mysterious situation. With his eyes closed, he suggests they try a different approach and reason backward from the result. He concludes the residents are continuously perishing, and immigration is meant to fill the vacancies. The older sister believes there's a conspiracy behind the immigration and the constant deaths. She says the appearance of monsters and a god is too coincidental and that the island is a trap. Du Ruo disagrees, thinking it's more of a transaction than a trap or conspiracy. He explains that high-ranked players must have sanctioned the immigration to the ritual island. The captain theorizes they have a deal with the island's god, sending immigrants in exchange for wishes. The younger one asks if the god is powerful enough to grant the wishes of high-ranked players. The agent estimates the player polling function has a random, uncontrolled limit. Our hero agrees, saying his confidence stems from his experience as a D-rank player. Durul reveals that after becoming D-rank, he could no longer enter E-rank dungeons. The young man concludes that high-ranked players have no need for the island's god. The scene shows high-ranked players displaying their advanced skills and powers in the game. He deduces the transaction isn't for them, but for the safety of their descendants. The captain agrees, saying in exchange for protection, they provide the population the god requires. The older sister finds the theory highly plausible, noting that bribing a dungeon boss is a good deal. He suspects the island's god has the strength of a high-ranked player to make such an agreement. The protagonist then makes an even bolder assumption about the true identity of the island's god. With a serious look, he reveals his theory the god is a cannibal player who consumed the immigrants. The captain and the two sisters are horrified by the terrible possibility the young man has raised. He says there are no rules preventing players from becoming dungeon bosses, and it all makes sense. The scene depicts the island's god as a reaper holding a blood-stained knife. Our hero stares into the darkness, pondering the ritual island and the fate of the missing immigrants. He imagines the island as an entertainment ground for the second generation of cannibal players. The two sisters are silent, shocked and disgusted by the young man's grim theory. The group stands in silence for a moment, processing the dark information they've just heard. The protagonist asks why they're staring at him, and they all avert their gazes, embarrassed. He thinks about the ritual island and how it could have become a party venue for cannibals. They stand on the city street as night falls and lights slowly begin to illuminate the area. The captain says the girl's intuition is always right and that the theory, while cruel, is probable. The older sister concludes that anyone who breaks the rules is captured and consumed by the island's god. The bureau agent reveals he tried to submit that answer but was unsuccessful with the theory. Our hero still doesn't know where the players are hiding or what other dangers await. The captain says they have multiple chances for trial and error and shouldn't hold back on submitting answers. He then takes out a potion, saying they should focus on surviving the first night. The protagonist warns them not to eat anything the residents offer, especially at night. The two sisters confirm they brought their own food to avoid eating the hosts. The captain says they should separate for now and will meet up again later. They part ways, and the agent expresses his hope that everyone will be fine when they meet the next day. At 8 in the evening, they return to the host house to spend the first night of the instance. The man is in the kitchen preparing dinner for his guests, the fire warming the stove. The younger one wonders if he will drug them, and the protagonist says they simply won't eat. The group sits at the table, waiting for dinner, and the young woman stays alert for any suspicious moves. The host then arrives with chicken soup, serving the group with a cheerful and hospitable smile. He mentions there are other side dishes and returns to the kitchen to fetch the rest of the food. They sit in silence at the table, eyeing the food, but none of them dare to touch their plates. The man returns and asks why they aren't eating, his eyes widening in surprise. The older sister thinks they are there to threaten him and shouldn't indulge him. The young man says they are wealthy and unaccustomed to home-cooked meals and brought their own. He then begins to eat his own food to avoid suspicion and maintain their cover. The host sighs, remarking that outsiders are always suspicious and this isn't the first time. Our hero asks if his daughter won't be eating, and the man says she doesn't like outsiders. The young man asks if he can see her, but the host refuses, saying she's shy and would be frightened. The protagonist notes his detoxification item hasn't activated, meaning the food is normal. The scene cuts to 9:30 at night, with the host washing the dinner dishes. He washes the dishes as time ticks by, and the hour for the temple ritual approaches. The host finishes the dishes and turns to the group sitting at the table. He asks if they aren't going to the temple to pray, warning that if they delay any longer, they won't make it. The protagonist says he has already prayed in his heart, and the older sister agrees. The man gets angry, saying they are gambling with their lives and that something bad will happen. He stands up from the table and faces the host with a defiant and confident expression. The young man asks why they don't go together, since he also needs to pray for blessings. He taunts him, saying, "Unless you don't dare to go to the temple with us." The man is left speechless, a look of fear and surprise on his pale face. He becomes angry, stating that only outsiders need to pray and that he doesn't appreciate the reminder. Enraged, the host yells for them to get out of his house and shoves the protagonist outside. Our hero thinks the man is nervous, but that he can't be pushed around given his evolution rate. With a smirk, he says the land is a public resource, and he should pay for the air he breathes. The host is furious at the young man's audacity, calling him shameless and an opportunist. The young man accuses him of being a tyrant, asking if he's trying to send them to their doom. The man becomes enraged by the accusation, shouting that what he's saying is complete nonsense. He wonders if the three of them are players and concludes that outsiders are indeed full of lies. The host tells them to stay if they wish, but they will perish if they disrespect the gods. The older sister then glares at him, asking what he means by those cryptic words. She says she wants to know about the sacrifice activities and what offerings are made to the god. The scene cuts to 9:30 at night, with the host washing the dinner dishes. The host and the protagonist group face off in the kitchen in a tense standoff. The man dares them to touch him, knowing they can't violate the rule against attacking residents. With a smirk, the older sister says they wouldn't dare touch him, but he shouldn't get ahead of himself. She threatens him, saying her brother is a D-rank player and he won't leave this dungeon alive. The host is terrified by the threat and the thought of being tormented by a D-rank player. With wide eyes, he calls them 3 lunatics for making such terrible threats. He denies knowing what they're talking about and runs to the door to escape the situation. The man curses them, saying they'll meet their end sooner or later for being non-believers. He then flees and locks himself in his room, leaving the group alone in the kitchen. The older sister realizes he didn't fall for the bluff and that he's afraid to go out at night. She then suggests they go ask the man's daughter what's really happening in the house. Our hero says it's pointless, as the dungeon has been active before, and the residents likely have tricks. The girl agrees, while the younger one is confused by the sudden turn of events. The protagonist tells them not to go to the second-floor rooms, as it could be a trap. He says he saw the man's daughter in her room and that she was already on guard against them. With a grin, he suggests they take it a step further and break into the host's room. The man is behind his room's door, terrified by the presence of the players in his home. He hears approaching footsteps and shrinks in fear, expecting the worst at any moment. Suddenly, a powerful punch shatters the bedroom door, and the man is startled by the force. A hole appears in the door and the host is frozen with fear, unsure of what to do. The protagonist peeks through the hole in the door and says with a smile, "We're here to keep watch." The host screams for them to get out, but the group enters the room to confront him directly. The young man feigns deafness, and the younger sister giggles at the situation, further irritating the man. He calls them shameless and hurls a teacup at the group in anger. The protagonist dodges the cup as the man yells for them to get out of his house immediately. The older sister uses her defense item, creating a barrier to protect them from the attacks. The host glares at them with hatred, shouting that they forced his hand. He then lights an incense stick with a determined look, preparing to use its power. The young man's detoxification item activates, and he realizes the incense is poisonous and must warn the others. Suddenly, the man's daughter appears, yelling at her father not to do this to their visitors. She tries to stop him, but he shoves her aside, telling her to get out of the way if she wants to live. The older sister tells the protagonist to put the item away, and he agrees with her suggestion. He knows he needs to protect the little girl, but taking the incense could be seen as an attack. The protagonist then calmly approaches the girl and positions himself in front of her. He flicks one of his blood daggers at the host's hand, who drops the incense in shock. The dagger flies back to his hand, and the man is stunned by the young man's ability. The host is furious at what just transpired and glares at the young man with pure hatred. With a swift motion, he stores the incense in his reserve space, so the man can't retrieve it. The host screams for him to return the incense, and the young man challenges him to search him if he wants. The man frisks him but finds nothing, growing desperate at the loss of his valuable item. The man shouts in desperation, asking why they are resisting the will of the island's god. With a look of pure hatred, he screams for the 3 of them to just perish already without complaining. The man's daughter then grabs his arm in fear, calling him father, in an attempt to calm him. But he continues to curse the island's god, and the girl begs him to stop blaspheming. In a fit of rage, the host forcefully shoves her, thoughtlessly calling her a useless thing. The older sister watches the scene, shocked and enraged by his actions. The younger one then comforts the little girl and asks the father what he thinks he's doing. He accuses her of being a hypocrite, saying if she truly cared, she would have perished obediently. The man dares them to attack, knowing the instance's rules forbid them from doing so. Our hero then calmly states they don't need bait, as they have no intention of breaking the rules. The host loses control and starts wrecking his room, cursing everyone present. The protagonist then asks if he isn't afraid of being punished for cursing a deity. The man reveals his true werewolf form, saying the god is a monster he would gladly take down. Fang Xiao and the older sister are stunned to discover the host is a monster. The young man then tells the girls to leave the room so he can speak with the man alone. After they exit, the host continues to mutter and curse the god of the island. With a smile, our hero agrees with him, saying that this whole situation is indeed a mess. He tells the man to stop acting tough, because he has already figured out their entire situation. The host sits on the floor, defeated, and asks what the young man means by that. Fan Xiao smiles, saying his guess was right, and that he understands the struggles of being a father. The host asks how he figured it all out, looking at him with a tense expression. The young man explains that he revered the god but cursed it when his plan with them failed. He continues, saying that if the sacrifice failed, one of the 2 of them would be eliminated by the island's god. So, after the plan went awry, he started cursing the god to draw its attention. The young man concludes he wanted the god to eliminate him so his daughter could be spared. The man confirms the theory, saying that if the ritual isn't completed, one of them will perish. Fan Xiao then pressures him to reveal everything, since he's doomed either way. But he says he's just kidding, and that it's not yet time to despair over the situation. The protagonist reveals that D-rank players can choose to leave a dungeon whenever they want. The host is surprised and asks if the young man can get him and his daughter, Xiao Yi, out of there. The young man reveals he isn't D-rank but has a friend who can help, provided he cooperates. But he warns that if the god intervenes, his friend might just leave them behind. The man says that's enough, staying here means their demise is just a matter of time. He thinks if he's eliminated, his daughter Xiaoyu won't be able to survive alone on the island. Our hero then mentions the girl, saying his actions were fake and overly dramatic. He deduces the man is deliberately trying to make his own daughter hate him. The host sighs, admitting the young man's observation skills are incredibly sharp. He reveals that on this island, people must hurt one another to survive. The man recounts immigrating 4 years ago with his entire family, seeking a better life. But the residents forced them to deceive outsiders, drugging them for the island's god. The man says that at first, he and his family refused to obey that order. But shortly after, his younger sister mysteriously vanished without a trace. He says they searched the entire town but couldn't even find her body. 6 months later, they refused to shelter players, and the next day his brother disappeared. Then his parents also vanished, and his family was slowly torn apart on the island. Desperate, he says only his wife, sister-in-law, and little Xiaoyi survived it all. His sister-in-law then had a nervous breakdown and ran out of the city trying to escape. But in the end, she was captured and eliminated by the monsters living in the island's jungle. He reveals that those creatures are the prison that keeps them from fleeing this cursed island. The man laments being deceived by false advertising before they moved there. Our hero then offers him a drink to help him calm down from the stress. The host recounts that his wife used the incense because she couldn't bear the thought of their daughter disappearing. But one of the players was D rank and survived the attack, returning to take revenge. As compensation, the D rank player then eliminated the host wife right in front of him. He spared the man and his daughter, saying the child was innocent, and then left the island. After witnessing that, little Xiaoyi became a quiet and withdrawn child. He says she feels guilty for everything that has happened to their family since they arrived. The protagonist understands he acts this way so his daughter will hate him and stop blaming herself. The host confirms the plan, saying he does it because the girl couldn't handle the truth. The young man then asks what happens to those who go to the temple or are thrown to the monsters. He says everyone who went out at night vanished in the same mysterious way as the others. The protagonist then asks if there are other dangers on the island besides the nightly rituals. The host reveals that monsters will invade the city on the second day to attack the outsiders. He also shares that on the third day, cannibal players will appear to hunt the others. The young man is surprised by this information and says their deal is now sealed. He asks if there is a pattern to the disappearances, and the man says he's never witnessed one. The young man grows concerned, asking if that means they could vanish at any moment. The scene then shows the two in the room as time passes and the night deepens outside. The host says that since he insulted the god, he will be the one chosen to disappear at dawn. With a smile, he says he's happy because his daughter will survive and asks the young man to protect her. Our hero is shocked by the man's calm acceptance of his own impending demise. He asks if residents can leave with players, but the host says it doesn't work that way. The protagonist says they will try anyway and will find a safe place for them. With a determined look, he says that first, they need to survive this night. He reasons that on the first day, the danger is the residents and the rituals they've created. On the second day, the threat comes from monsters that weaken players for the third day's hunt. He then concludes that on the third day, the greatest danger will be being hunted by other players. The young man refers to the cannibal players as the second generation, saying they hide in the shadows. He thinks the island's god cannot act directly due to the dungeon's rules. With a serious look, he says that after sunrise, he will tell Captain Duru the whole truth. Suddenly, a notification appears, stating he's met a condition and can now exit the instance. But he decides to wait, as leaving with only one condition met would result in a very low grade. With a serious expression, he then peeks out of the room to check if the coast is clear. He finds the two sisters and the little girl in the hallway and says with a smile that he's sorted everything out. The two girls are utterly shocked and confused by the young man's sudden declaration. The young man then thanks little Xiaoyi, and the older sister asks if he has uncovered the truth. He confirms it, saying the host's information helped him piece together the entire puzzle. The younger one can't believe they've already cleared the instance and asks what they'll do next. The older one says they should stay for the full 3 days, as meeting one condition is just a safety net. She suggests they aim for a higher grade to get better rewards from the dungeon. The younger one worries about the host and his daughter, since one of them will be taken by the ritual. Our hero explains he promised to get them off the island as payment for the information he received. He says he'll ask Duruo for help and trade the truth with him to secure their escape. With the plan settled, they now only need to wait for the dawn of the second day to act. At dawn, the protagonist climbs onto a roof and uses binoculars to scan the city's surroundings. Suddenly, he spots a creature with glowing red eyes approaching the city wall. Immediately after, a horde of monsters charges at high speed toward the city gates. Through his binoculars, he watches the creatures approach, bracing for battle. He alerts the girls that the monsters are coming from the north, and they need to meet with the bureau. The two sisters then ready their items and prepare for the imminent battle. The older sister summons her ghosts, declaring that they are ready for the fight. The protagonist then calls for the host and his daughter to come with them to safety. But the man reveals that the island's residents will not be attacked by the monsters that live there. The young man insists they stick together to save the time of having to fetch them later. The host then agrees and picks up his daughter to follow the group to the north gate. With everyone together, they begin walking toward the rendezvous with the bureau agents. But suddenly, several monsters leap from the rooftops, surrounding the group in the middle of the street. One of the creatures then snarls and prepares to attack the group with its sharp claws. The monster glares at the group with a hungry look, ready for the impending bloodshed. The younger sister is terrified by the creature's appearance, and a tear streams down her face. The creature then lunges toward them, and the girl shouts for everyone to watch out for the attack. With his eyes glowing, our hero prepares to intercept the monster with his blood power. He then unleashes a volley of blood blades that fly toward the creature at high speed. The monster is surprised by the counter-attack and tries to parry the blades with its claws. But the blades are faster, piercing its body in multiple places simultaneously. The creature manages to dodge a few blades but is struck by others in the chest. With a final strike, the protagonist impales the monster's chest with a blood blade. The creature then collapses to the ground, completely defeated and lifeless after the surprise assault. The host is shocked to see the young man defeat the monster with a single blow. The older sister then comments to the younger one that there's nothing surprising about it. Our hero then tells the group to keep moving forward and to stay alert to their surroundings. The scene then cuts to the bureau captain, perched on a wall with a bow of light. He fires a golden arrow, striking a monster and saving one of his agents from an attack. The agent then thanks his boss for the help and for saving his life at that moment. Duro scolds him, telling him to maintain his defense and not let his guard down during the battle. Our hero's group then approaches the location, and the captain spots the young man arriving. With a smile, the young man looks up at the bureau agent, observing him from the wall. The captain then gives the protagonist a nod, a gesture of recognition and trust. The young man asks the girls to handle the remaining monsters and protect the host and his daughter. He then leaps up onto the wall to join the captain and fight alongside him. With a grin, Fan Xiao readies his blood power for the impending attack. The captain jokes with him, saying he missed him and that it took him long enough to get there. The young man then unleashes a barrage of blood blades at an advancing horde of monsters. A large red explosion erupts, eliminating most of the creatures at once with its power. The bureau agents then engage the remaining monsters that survived the initial attack. Our hero faces the remaining creatures with a smirk, as if he knew their true capabilities all along. One of the monsters is confused by the young man's attitude and stares at him with a look of fear. Suddenly, the creatures begin to fall back and flee the battle, surprising everyone. The protagonist finds their retreat strange, comparing it to the rules of a selection dungeon he's seen before. Duro then congratulates him on his work and asks if he managed to uncover the island's truth. The young man says he'll share the truth, but in return, the captain has to do him a favor. Duro thinks for a moment and agrees to the proposal, not expecting the request to be difficult. Our hero then asks him to get the host and his daughter off the island and take them to a safe place. The captain finds the request complicated, saying that settling in this world is no easy task. But he reveals he found a safe zone governed by players and can take them there. The agent warns him that taking the residents might provoke the god's wrath, but the young man says he'll handle it. He cautions that his method is untested, and if it all goes wrong, the captain should just escape. With the conditions set, the bureau agent agrees to the protagonist's plan. Duro then gathers all his men to relay the information about the truth. All the agents then receive a notification that the answer they submitted is correct. One of the agents celebrates their success and for completing one of the instance's missions. The captain orders an injured agent to fall back, heal, and report everything to bureau headquarters. He then commands the rest of the group to follow him to find the island's god and the other players. An agent then calls our hero by his fake name and tells him to get down from the wall so they can leave. The agent complains about the odd name but says he doesn't mind, as it's a personal preference. Suddenly, the older sister calls out to him, and the young man jumps down from the wall to see what's wrong. The girl reveals that the host Li Wendong and his daughter Xiao Yi have vanished without a trace. Shocked, our hero asks what happened, and she says they disappeared during the fight with the monsters. With a serious expression, the protagonist concludes that the island's god must have acted and taken them. But the girl finds it odd, since the ritual was supposed to take only one person, not both. The protagonist clarifies that the take one rule was made by the god, not by the dungeon itself. Abruptly, a bureau agent is struck by a violent and completely unexpected punch. He thinks their lives are in the god's hands and needs to calm down to understand the disappearance. With a focused gaze, he tells the group not to panic, as there is still a glimmer of hope. An agent says they must be alright and could be rescued if they find the hideout. The agent asks if they entered the house, and the young woman denies it, saying they were always close by. He then concludes the common factor in the disappearances is that everyone was outside. The young man wonders what makes the houses safe and what's different about them compared to the outdoors. He says the problem must be with the ground itself. It's the only explanation for the mystery. The older sister is startled by this theory, but he says they need to take a risk to find out. He insists the problem is right beneath their feet and prepares to use his blood power. With his blood weapon in hand, he gets ready to strike the ground and test his new theory. The protagonist attacks the ground, and an agent uses a shield to protect the group from the blast. With his eyes glowing, he realizes that what's beneath them is not ordinary earth as he thought. The ground then shatters, revealing an empty chasm with a mysterious light at the bottom. Without a second thought, the young man dives into the hole to investigate the secret area. He falls, seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, bracing for what he'll find below. Upon landing, he comes across two mysterious figures toasting with glasses of red wine. He sees people talking and laughing, wondering if they are the second-generation players. Across the hall, he spots the host and his daughter, unconscious and lying on the floor. Our hero believes the two must be alive and that he needs to rescue them immediately. Suddenly, he sees one of the second-generation players harassing a girl. With a look of rage, he realizes the island's god has yet to appear and stop them. He then kicks a soda can across the floor to grab the attention of the players in the bar. The two men stare at him, surprised and annoyed by the young man's sudden interruption. The young man knows he can't alert the island's god and must proceed with extreme caution. The two players are startled to see him and wonder how he dared to invade their territory. With an analytical gaze, the protagonist concludes they are not the god, but merely its servants. Suddenly, the rest of the group arrives, and the players become even more terrified by the intrusion. The captain and the two sisters are stunned by the scene and the luxurious location they've entered. The two men cry out for help from the island's god, yelling at the group not to come any closer. They run desperately, trying to flee from the group that is slowly advancing toward them. The protagonist and his group then begin to chase the two players through the opulent hall. Abruptly, a massive wave of water erupts from the ground, trapping the two sisters in a blue pillar. A giant fish-like creature emerges from the water, revealing itself to be the island's god. The younger one wonders how the god could look like this and not be a cannibal player as they'd thought. The young man explains that if a player absorbs too many genes, they can eventually transform into a monster. The captain concludes that if they retain their consciousness, they can still be considered players. He then orders his men to ignore the god and save the residents who are trapped there. The older sister agrees, noting that without restrictions, the god would have already attacked them. The players plead for help from the island's god, but the creature does nothing to save them. Our hero then summons his blood dagger and prepares to eliminate the two players. With a wicked smile, he declares their game is over and moves in for the final attack. With a single strike, he eliminates both second-generation players at once. The bodies of the two men then slump to the floor, lifeless after the swift and lethal attack. On the other side, a player prepares to attack a group of unconscious residents. The man licks the hand of one of the girls, getting ready for the feast to come. A bureau agent then summons his dark bow, preparing to stop the player's attack. He fires a purple energy arrow that strikes a barrier and explodes on impact. The camera focuses on the dark energy arrow as it nears the player's protective barrier. The captain grows frustrated, seeing the player has a D-rank defense item he can't break. The protagonist faces the agent with his blood dagger, saying he'll handle the barrier for him. He then asks what the agent plans to do about the player's defense, which is also coming from above. With a powerful blow, our hero shatters the player's barrier using his blood dagger. The player is astonished by the young man's power and the ease with which he broke his defense. The young man then tells the two sisters to go save the residents while he deals with the players. The two girls then rush toward the residents to protect them from the remaining players. Suddenly, the island's god conjures a giant wave and launches it at the two girls. The protagonist desperately yells at them not to attack the creature under any circumstances. But it's too late. The giant wave crashes down on the two girls, who scramble for cover. He realizes the god can't attack directly but can retaliate if attacked first. Desperate, the captain shouts for his men to save the two girls from the creature's assault. The older sister senses the danger and prepares to use one of her defensive items. An agent reports finding a member of the cannibal player group among the crowd. The captain then orders one of his agents to escort the identified player out of the dungeon. The older sister calls to the younger one, and they begin searching for the host and his daughter. They soon find them under a cloth, still unconscious, and prepare to rescue them. The younger one then readies her healing power to awaken the two from their trance. Our hero then appears, telling them to hurry as they don't have much time. He says his earring allows him to lift heavy weights, and he'll use his power to get everyone out. With his blood power, he creates a large red orb, enveloping all the residents within it. He notes that 1,000 kilograms is a bit heavy, but this method should work to get them out. With the blood orb floating, the young man prepares to lift them out of the hall. Suddenly, the blood orb is struck by an attack and two bureau agents fall from it. The protagonist is shocked by the unexpected assault and the fall of the two bureau agents. He then tells the captain to use his arrows to distract the god while he rescues the people. The captain agrees and begins firing his dark energy arrows toward the god. The arrows strike the cannibal players, who scream in pain from the agent's surprise attack. The creature then turns its attention to the captain, attacking him with waves of blue energy. With a smile, the agent celebrates having finally captured the creature's attention. He thinks he can't hit the tentacles without activating the god's attack mode. The older sister then yells for the younger one to use her poison to stop the players. The girl summons her staff and unleashes her Poison Master item with all her might. A purple smoke then engulfs the players trapped in the creature's tentacles. One of the players begins to feel the poison's effects and panics from the intense pain. He screams in agony as the poison spreads through his body, leaving him too weak to fight. The camera focuses on the older sister's feet as the player desperately cries for help. Suddenly, one of the players breaks free and points a weapon at the two girls. The older sister then activates her item, and the player's weapon is flung from his hand. With glowing eyes, the player tries to use his weapon but is thwarted by the girl's power. The weapon then slips from his grasp, leaving him surprised and confused. Shocked, the player doesn't understand why his weapon suddenly just fell from his hands. He tries to help his companion, who is perishing from the younger girl's poison. But the poison is too strong and the man begins to dissolve into a dark purple smoke. The player then grabs his friend's weapon from the ground, preparing for a counter-attack. But suddenly an arrow pierces his chest, eliminating him on the spot. The captain then charges toward the player, attacking him with his dark energy arrows. He then turns to the last remaining player, preparing for the final assault. The agent holds his last arrow, facing the enemy with a serious and determined expression. Desperate, the last player clutches one of the tentacles, begging not to be eliminated. The captain then weaves through the tentacles, preparing to strike the player again. Suddenly, the island's god opens its mouth, attempting to swallow the players whole. The creature then launches a wave of water at the players to capture them. He gets frustrated that he can't attack the player protected by the creature's tentacles. Abruptly, our hero uses his blood power to ensnare the captain and the two sisters. He then pulls them out of the reach of the creature's tentacles, saving them from the attack. The young man yells for them to fall back and prepare for a new attack strategy. The captain says they only have enough energy for one thing at a time and they need to choose. The last remaining player hides behind one of the creature's tentacles for protection. The two sisters and the captain ready themselves for a fight, and the young man faces them seriously. The island's god watches the group with its glowing, threatening red eyes. Our hero says he's right, they can only do one thing at a time here. He points out they've already discovered the truth and can simply leave the dungeon at any moment. The creature remains silent, observing the young man and contemplating its next move. The god then sees its attacks, and the protagonist uses his power to lift the group upward. He tells the captain and the two girls to ascend, saying he has a way out of here. The young man stays behind, facing the island's god with a blood aura surrounding him. He says if the creature had fought with its full strength, it wouldn't have been so easy to rescue the people. With a serious look, our hero asks if the god intentionally went easy on them. The creature just stares at him in silence, offering no response to his question. With a smile, he says the creature could have swallowed the people anytime it wished. He reveals he placed all the residents in the houses so the god couldn't reach them. But he knows this is a temporary solution, and he must find a way to defeat it. The young man says that since arriving, he's been observing every detail of this strange place. He noticed that both residents and players were always close to a particular pillar. The camera focuses on the large pillar in the center of the hall as he continues his explanation. The island's god then snarls in anger, realizing its secret has been discovered by the young man. He concludes the creature uses an item to interfere with the ground and pull people into this location. With his blood dagger in hand, he threatens to destroy the pillar to sever the god's power. The creature then attacks him with its tentacles to prevent him from destroying its power source. The protagonist is thrown back by the impact of the attack, landing hard on the ground. He is surprised by the force of the attack but quickly gets back on his feet to continue the fight. The island's god confirms his theory is correct and attacks again with its tentacles. Our hero then summons his assassin angel, declaring that now is the time to go all out. With a smile, the angel appears, ready to fight the giant creature before her. The creature is surprised by the angel's appearance and braces for the ensuing attack. With a single slash, the angel severs one of the creature's tentacles with her sharp blade. She then dashes forward, cutting another of the creature's tentacles with incredible speed. With its tentacles severed, the creature screams in pain, glaring at the angel with hatred. The angel continues her relentless assault, cutting off its tentacles one by one without mercy. The creature roars in pain from the angel's attacks, but one tentacle manages to strike our hero squarely. He is sent flying by the blow, and the angel rushes to save him from falling into the sea. Even with his shield, he realizes an attack from a high-ranked player is incredibly powerful. The angel catches him, and he says his organs were injured. He would have fallen into the sea without her. The island's god then roars in fury, preparing for a new assault against the group. Our hero is surprised and concerned by the giant creature's reaction. He realizes the god has abandoned the pillar and is now moving freely throughout the hall. Suddenly, the hall begins to tremble and flood with a large amount of water. A giant wave then engulfs the area, and the young man finds himself surrounded by water. He feels the immense pressure and uses his shield to protect himself from the crushing weight. At that moment, he sees the creature's tentacles regenerating and knows this isn't normal. The young man then deduces this is the effect of a high-level item the god possesses. He figures the angel's blow wasn't fatal because it didn't hit the giant creature's brain. The angel says she wants to tear the monster to pieces, but the young man knows he only had one shot. With his blood dagger in hand, he prepares for another charge against the island's god. He then hurls the dagger with all his might toward the creature facing him in the water. The blood dagger flies at high speed and strikes the giant monster squarely in the head. But the attack doesn't have the desired effect. The dagger merely scratches the sea creature's skin. He realizes his D-rank item cannot harm a player of such a high rank. So, he decides to just provoke the creature and sends the angel flying toward the central pillar. He thinks that since the angel has a conceptual attack, she can also destroy the pillar. The angel then summons her scythe and prepares to strike the pillar with all her strength. Desperate, the island's god screams for her to stop, but the angel celebrates having cracked the pillar. She then continues to strike the pillar with her scythe, creating more cracks in the structure. With a tired look, the angel complains that the pillar is very tough and took a while to break. Our hero says she has 20 seconds, which should be enough for the plan. The island's god then glares him with a look of pure hatred and frustration at having its plan ruined. It watches the angel fly out of the hall as the place begins to crumble. With the pillar's destruction, the god becomes furious, and the young man tells the angel it's time to escape. On the surface, the bureau group feels the tremor and wonders what the young man did down below. Suddenly, they see our hero emerging from the hole with the angel, followed by a large wave of water. He says if the god pursues them, he'll exit the dungeon, but if not, he'll stay until the end. The scene then cuts to other players in the city, observing the rain and the wave of water. They don't know what happened underground, but are curious about the commotion in the dungeon. The players run to see what's happening, and the protagonist watches them from above. He notices the monster didn't follow them and figures its movement must be restricted within the dungeon. The young man then tells the angel to rest and prepares to meet up with the rest of the group. He sees the captain and the two sisters approaching with curious expressions. Duru then asks what he did to cause such a massive commotion in the city. With a smile, our hero says he just did what was necessary to save everyone. The captain teases him, asking where he gets the confidence to face an island god. The older sister finds it strange to call the creature a player, and the younger one notices the young man's injuries. He says his internal organs were injured, and the girl approaches to heal him with her talent. With a green light in her hands, she begins to heal the protagonist's internal wounds. Once healed, he thanks her, saying he feels much better and is ready for the next battle. He concludes the god cannot leave the underground as long as the dungeon is active on the island. The young man says that even after everything, it didn't pursue him, which proves his theory. He then warns that there are still monsters nearby, but they aren't a major threat to them. The older sister asks if this means they no longer need to find shelter for the night. The captain and the two girls look at him, awaiting his answer to her question. The younger one then grows concerned, asking if the god isn't deliberately trying to trick them. The bureau agent agrees, saying they should just follow the rules to avoid any trouble. An agent reports that 2 of their men have already left, and the captain tells her not to be greedy. She thanks the young man and asks if they should head to the beach, but he tells them to wait. He says that even though the dungeon is safe now, it's better to wait until the 3rd day to leave. The captain agrees, adding that the connection to the outside world will be easier at the end. He then asks about the residents rescued from underground and if they are all right. The protagonist opens a house door, revealing all the residents are safe inside. They look at the crowd of people saved from the island's god and the cannibal players. Our hero then asks the captain to take all these people with him when he leaves. The captain warns that not all the residents are good, many use the incense to attack. With a smile, our hero says that on this island, it's impossible to tell who's good and who's bad anymore. He states the only true evil is the island's god, and the others are merely victims. The bureau agents look at the people with pity, understanding their difficult circumstances. The captain then says he's not the only one who can't stand to see this kind of thing happen. With a grin, he suggests they eliminate all the monsters on the island to annoy the god. The 2 sisters and one of the agents immediately agree, joining the hunting plan. Duru then says they should all go together but must be back before nightfall. The scene then cuts to the island's forest, where our hero walks alone, lost in thought. Suddenly, a notification appears, stating his items are compatible for fusion. The screen then asks if he wants to fuse the Superior's mask and the Dustless shield. He thinks for a moment and decides to reconsider fusing the 2 D-rank items he possesses. The young man is surprised he managed to get D-rank items from E-rank players so easily. The mask belonged to a boss who imposed physical and psychological pressure on his employees. The item generates a 10-meter gravity field that intensifies near its center. He then decides to discard the other item and wonders what the fusion of the 2 will create. The fusion is then completed, and the young man is amazed by the new item he has just created. The shield can now control its repulsive force within a 5-meter radius and has become stronger. With a smile, he realizes he can now create barriers anywhere and with greater force. The group then finds him, and he explains he can float and move using the repulsive force. He then soars through the air, celebrating his newly acquired ability of flight. With an excited smile, he revels in the liberating feeling of flying through the skies. The young man then lands in front of the group with a satisfied grin for his new skill. But the 2 sisters look at him with disdain, asking if he's showing off for them. He says this type of flight is different and tells them to pay more attention to the situation. The captain then warns him that he's attracted all the monsters in the forest with his display. Our hero says they are there to annoy the god and shouldn't worry about it. The scene then cuts to the 3rd day of the dungeon on the island's beach, with everyone gathered. The captain asks if he's sure he can stop the island's god in 5 minutes. He explains that once the dungeon ends, the god will be unrestricted and can hunt them down. With a smile, the young man says he has already revealed the answer and the captain can figure it out himself. He then shows the ticket he has for the island instance, surprising the captain. The young man explains that with the ticket, he can force the dungeon to reopen, trapping the god. He says the reasoning is simple and that the captain should now make his move. Suddenly, a notification appears and the sacrificial island dungeon officially ends. The captain then says his farewells and leaves with his men, receiving a C grade for the dungeon. Our hero also departs, receiving an A grade as a reward for his performance on the island. As a reward, the captain gives him a D rank item that resembles a large turtle shell. The young man laughs, saying he now understands why the captain didn't want to reveal the item's name earlier. Suddenly, the younger sister calls out for the older one, and the group turns to see what happened. Little Xiaoyi bids farewell to the older sister with a smile, saying she will miss her. The young woman then waves to the little girl and receives C and B grades for her dungeon performance. The two sisters then say goodbye to the protagonist and depart, leaving the young man alone on the island. He now stands alone on the beach, watching the spot where his friends vanished moments ago. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble, and the young man senses something large approaching. The ground then shatters, and the protagonist finds himself enveloped in a powerful, yellow energy. With a calm expression, he faces the danger and concludes the island's god has finally appeared. He then takes out the instance ticket, preparing to reactivate the dungeon on the island. The ticket glows and the sacrificial island dungeon begins to reopen for him. The captain watches the island calm down and praises the protagonist's skills and courage. The rescued residents celebrate their freedom, and one woman wonders if she's dreaming. With tears in his eyes, the host embraces his daughter, saying they are finally free. Little Xiaoyi repeats the word free with a look of hope and happiness in her eyes. With a smile, the little girl hugs her father, celebrating the new life they will have together. From a distance, the young man observes the island, thinking that rescuing the residents greatly angered the monster. With a smirk, he says the creature can't do anything against him and burns the ticket. But he knows that new immigrants will be drawn to the island, and a new cycle will begin. He then concludes the root of the problem is the island's god and the dungeon itself. The protagonist is then surrounded by a blue energy, bracing himself for what's next. A new notification appears, and the young man finds himself in a new setting with a new mission. He thinks he can't interfere directly but has an idea to defeat the island's god. The young man then walks through a forest, thinking that superpowers are the key to everything. He remembers he has 8 days of accumulated luck and decides to use it all at once. Holding an orb of light, he realizes it's not enough for his plan. He thinks the dungeon pulls people in randomly, and that's the key to his victory. With a smile, he wishes for the dungeon to pull in a few high-ranked players from the Order faction. He then uses his luck orb, hoping his wish to defeat the god will come true. With the orb glowing brightly, he hopes he has enough luck for his plan to succeed. The scene then cuts to outside the city, where 2 players are walking through the forest. Our hero observes the players and realizes his wish didn't pan out as he'd hoped. He resigns himself, saying he can't meddle in everything and needs to focus on himself. The young man then walks toward the city to begin the new instance of the ritual island. He receives the dungeon notification and realizes the rules are still the same as before. With a serious look, he says he already knows the truth and can no longer solve the puzzle. He wonders who he will ask for shelter, since there are no more residents in the island city. With a determined expression, he concludes the rules are clear, and he must find a way. He then decides to simply stay in one of the empty houses for the night. Suddenly, he spots a mysterious figure in the middle of the dark street of the ghost town. A girl with white hair and red eyes stares at him with a serious and somber expression. With his sharp sixth sense, he perceives this girl is not an ordinary person and becomes alert. He realizes the girl is extremely dangerous and he needs to be very careful around her. The young man then eyes her cautiously, trying to figure out who she is and what she's doing in the city. The girl then smiles at him, and the young man feels a dangerous aura emanating from her. With a serious look, he realizes the girl intends to eliminate him and that he needs to escape. The young woman then walks toward a house, and the young man sighs in relief for a moment. But he knows he can't stay and runs far from the city to get away from her. After running a great distance, he stops to catch his breath from the desperate escape. He then looks at the city from afar, wondering if he's at a safe distance yet. Suddenly, a purple energy envelops him, and he realizes he's fallen into the girl's trap. A warning notification appears before him, alerting him to the approaching danger. He turns to see the 2 players from the forest and is surprised by the scene. The notification then informs him the dungeon is collapsing and everyone will be teleported. A massive explosion rocks the island, and the young man wonders what on earth is happening. He is then thrown a great distance by the blast's impact, not fully understanding the situation. The island then begins to be swallowed by the sea, and a large sinkhole forms in the middle of the ocean. With a panicked look, he realizes the situation is dire, and he needs to get out of there quickly. The scene shows the massive hole in the sea that swallowed the entire island in seconds. Suddenly, he is teleported to a train station, finding himself in a familiar and safe place. He wonders what happened and why the ritual island simply exploded out of nowhere. Feeling a pain in his ear, he takes a healing potion to recover from the explosion. He then spots the players who entered with tickets and notices they are all injured. He approaches and asks if they were also hurt, and the players nod in confirmation. One of them says they left as soon as the mission began and asks if anyone knows what happened. The protagonist says he's in the same boat, and that it was a waste of his entry ticket. Another player says at least they left with a reward, so it wasn't a total waste. With a worried look, our hero thinks of the white-haired girl and hopes she's alright. Suddenly, a notification appears, stating he contributed to the dungeon's destruction. He wonders if the game can detect the indirect effects of his superpowers and is left confused. The young man then concludes the game favors order, and destroying bad dungeons is beneficial for him. He then moves closer to the other players to overhear their conversation about the explosion. With the new grade, he realizes he is closer to becoming a D-rank player in the future. He sees his grade has risen to B, and with one more A grade, he can advance in rank. One player says they were the first to be teleported because they were at the center. Another says he was outside the city and saw the entire island explode suddenly. With a panicked expression, he tries to explain what he saw but can't find the words. He then yells that the entire dungeon blew up, and the other players are shocked by the news. They wonder how a dungeon can explode, and the man says he wants to know the reason too. Suddenly, a train arrives at the station, and everyone turns to watch it approach. Tired of the chaos, the players decide to board the train to head home. But our hero stays behind, noticing the white-haired girl hasn't appeared at the station. He thinks he hasn't slept in 4 days and needs to rest to recover quickly. But he knows he can't sleep, as the train is not a completely safe place for him. Suddenly, a notification appears on the train, announcing a bounty for a super player. He hears other players discussing what a super player is and listens closely. One of them explains that to be a super player, one needs 100% evolution, an S item, and to have cleared an S dungeon. The young man is surprised by the 3 conditions and wonders how to obtain an S rank item. He then learns that S rank items are incredibly rare and that players fight fiercely for them. With this new information, he feels satisfied and closes his eyes to rest for a moment. Suddenly, the white-haired girl appears and says that not every assassin is worth her time. With a smile, she says she hopes the young man proves worthy of her attention in time. He is startled, wondering how the girl got on the train without him noticing. The assassin Angel then appears, explaining the girl got on using an item's power. With a smile, she approaches the young man, saying she likes him a lot and finds him handsome. The girl senses the young man's mental fluctuation and asks if he used a special talent. With a coin in hand, she prepares to use her power and attack the protagonist on the train. She then flips the coin into the air, and the young man feels his body being paralyzed by her magic. He can't move, and the coin hovers in the air, emitting a powerful red aura. The coin then stops mid-air, and the girl looks at him with a wicked, confident smile. With a malicious grin, the angel says it's time to make her move and prepares to attack. The white-haired girl is surprised by the angel's reaction and braces for combat. The angel charges toward the girl, but her attack is blocked by an invisible barrier. She realizes her teleport failed and that she can't get close to the mysterious girl. With her eyes glowing in anger, the angel readies another attack with her scythe. She then strikes with all her might, but the girl dodges the blow with ease and composure. The white-haired girl faces her with a serious and challenging look during the fight. The angel manages to land a cut on the girl's face, but the attack has little effect. The girl simply observes the small cut on her face without any reaction of pain. With a smile, she licks the blood from the cut and looks at the angel with a curious gaze. The angel then lunges again to attack, but the girl stops her with a simple gesture. She uses a mysterious power, trapping the angel in midair and preventing her from moving freely. The angel then tries to dematerialize to escape, but the girl's magic stops her. She rematerializes, and the angel says the girl is very strong and they should flee. The angel then tries to bite the young man to break free, but he stops her with his strength. He wonders how the angel got so heavy and realizes the coin is on his forehead. The angel is then thrown back, and the girl faces her with a serious and threatening look. With a smile, she says that only those who revere life can pass her judgment. The coin then returns to the girl's hand, and the young man realizes he can move again. With a smile, she congratulates him for passing her test and looks at him calmly. He wonders if this means she is from the court of life and looks at her, confused. The young man concludes the girl has no hostile intentions and that he is safe for now. He tells the angel not to attack her as she is not an enemy and they should remain calm. The young man deduces she is Nation's End, the high-ranked player the court was searching for. The girl says she dislikes the title and will allow him to call her teacher. Shocked, he asks if she is also an assassin, and she replies that everyone has their own style. The girl asks if he finds it strange that she is an assassin, and he is at a loss for words. He then asks if she wants to recruit him for her organization, and she confirms it. But she reveals her other purpose is to find out what dragged her into an E-ranked dungeon. The young man says it was just bad luck, and she laughs, saying she'll accept that excuse for now. She then hands him an invitation, telling him to go see the dungeon for himself if he has doubts. The girl explains he must complete an assassination trial to become a member. Surprised, our hero wonders what an assassination trial entails and is intrigued. She then tells him to find her in the city of Romaine once he becomes a D-rank player. With her mission complete, the girl stretches and says her time is up and she must go. She says the visit was not fun at all and vanishes, leaving the young man alone on the train. He sighs in relief, thinking he just caught the attention of someone very dangerous. The scene then cuts to a building's garage where the young man arrives after his long journey. He decides not to report to the bureau and just sleep a little in his car to rest. He thinks that an organization like the Court of Life would never accept an E-rank player. But he remembers the girl took him seriously after seeing his assassin angel in action. With a potion in hand, he concludes she was the first person able to see the angel. He thinks she can ignore the train's rules, and that even the guards didn't react to her. With the ticket in hand, he wonders if the girl noticed his unusual abilities and got excited. He then stores the D-rank ticket, deciding to investigate the city once he levels up. With everything settled, he finally lies down on the car seat to sleep and rest. The next day at noon, he is woken by his ringing cell phone and answers the call. He is surprised to see it's Liu Beiji and asks what she wants at that moment. The girl explains that time flows differently in the dungeon, and she called to see if he was back. She says she and her sister are still in the city and asks when they can meet. With a shy smile, the young woman says she still needs to accept his job offer. He then asks for her location, saying he'll meet her to sort everything out in person. He realizes 3 days have passed in the real world and that the time flow is always different. The young man then decides to organize his items, looking over the rewards from the island dungeon. He notes that the more tickets a player has, the fewer rewards they get for completing a dungeon. He then drinks one of the evolution potions he received to increase his power level. The potion takes him from 27 to 29%, and he realizes he needs better potions. Next, he examines the new items he obtained and sees an E-rank Newton's apple. He also receives a D-rank blood-related item that enhances his physical abilities. Suddenly, a notification appears, stating his blood items are compatible for fusion. The fusion then occurs, and a new earring with a purple gem appears on his left ear. The system announces the fusion is complete, and the new item possesses the effects of both. He celebrates that the item kept its passive effect, and he only needs to shout its name once. The young man complains that shouting item names is embarrassing and can make him lose the initiative. He then takes the Newton's apple and decides to save it for a future situation. The scene then cuts to a hotel room where the young man meets with the two sisters. The older one asks what he did with the island's god, and he looks at her with a smile. He teases her, saying she seems certain he would get into some kind of trouble. With a serious look, he reveals that he completely eliminated the island's god. The two girls are shocked and ask how he managed to solve the problem with the immigrants. With a mysterious smile, he says it's a secret and doesn't reveal how he did it. He then asks if anyone from the bureau has contacted them since the dungeon. The younger one explains they were taken to the bureau's branch to give their statements. She says Agent Wu Yanking invited them to join the bureau, but her sister declined. With a shy look, the young woman asks the protagonist if they should join the bureau or not. He says there are pros and cons, and they need to think carefully before deciding. The young man explains the bureau is a large platform with many resources for them to grow, but he warns the risk factor is not low, and they will face many dangers. The older sister says that power and duty are equivalent, and they understand the risks. He then says if they want his opinion, he thinks they should join the bureau. The young man says they need to consider faith and conviction, not just profits and losses. With a shy smile, the younger one asks if he will join the bureau with them too. He says he already works for the bureau and is accustomed to his freedom of action. The young man then asks if Captain Du Ruo has returned, and the girl says she doesn't know. He then calls the agent, but the call doesn't connect, and he realizes he's still busy. The young man concludes that getting people out is easy, but finding a place for them is hard. The younger one then asks when they will start, reminding him of the job proposal. He asks if she is in a hurry, and the girl says no, they can wait. The young man then says they will wait 3 days to verify if her luck affects him. The scene then cuts to the hotel entrance, where he prepares to activate his ability. He thinks he will relax and consider what to do after he becomes a D-rank player. The younger one then gets in the car, saying she sat in front to better assist him. The older sister wonders if her younger sibling has something strange in mind, but she decides to trust her sister and gets in the car, taking a seat in the back. He then suggests they get lunch, and the older one complains she doesn't like eating out. He reminds her their clothes are items and won't get dirty from the restaurant food. The young man then tells the younger one they'll buy new clothes for her later. He parks the car, saying his main objective isn't to eat, but to conduct an experiment. The young man explains he needs to see if he'll still have back with the lucky girl nearby. The two sisters look at him, and the older one says he's really putting a lot of effort into this test. They then enter the restaurant and prepare for the large meal that awaits them. After lunch, they go shopping, and the younger one picks out some new clothes for herself. He notices that so far no accidents have occurred, and the girl's luck is working. With his superpower active, he created the perfect conditions for bad luck, but nothing happened. He knows a single success doesn't prove his theory, and that he needs to test it more. The scene then cuts to the group at an amusement park preparing for a bungee jump. The older sister screams in fear as she leaps from the platform with the younger one beside her. He thinks the girl's luck must have a limit, and he needs to discover its range. The younger one also screams in fear but enjoys the adrenaline rush of the jump. He decides to postpone the limit test until after he becomes a D-rank player. With a smile, he jumps from the platform, enjoying the freefall to relieve stress. The scene then cuts to the protagonist's house, where he is preparing a grand feast for the girls. The older sister praises the food, and the younger one agrees, saying his cooking is incredible. With a smile, the young woman says his future girlfriend will be very lucky to have him. She then says she would love to eat his cooking every day and looks at him with a sweet expression. The camera focuses on the kitchen and the bountiful table the young man has prepared for the sisters. With a shy smile, the girl says he's amazing and it seems like he can do anything. The older sister scolds her, telling her to stop explaining because she's making it worse. She then asks when they are going to the next dungeon, and the young man says it will be the next day. The young woman asks what they will do until then, and he looks at her with a mysterious smile. He says the experiment is over, and now they can relax and have some real fun. With a smile, he clarifies it's not for an experiment, but for them to genuinely enjoy themselves. The scene then cuts to the park lake, where the group is boating at dusk. The older sister is surprised he knows how to drive a boat, and he says he learned from his father. She then asks how he discovered he could control his luck, and he gives her a serious look. He says he's just a normal person who enjoys researching strange and unusual topics. The younger one then reveals she wasn't always lucky and used to be a very normal person. The young man is surprised and asks if her luck isn't something she was born with. She says she used to have average luck and would even lose to her sister at rock, paper, scissors. The scene shows the two children with a scoreboard: 50 wins for the older sister and 2 for the younger. She also mentions needing 1,000 packs to complete a collection her sister finished with 400. The older sister remembers the younger one being chubby and how the boys at school teased her. He then asks when she started getting lucky, and the girl looks at him thoughtfully. She reveals it was 9 years ago, and since then, no one has ever bullied her again. The young man recalls that was around the time he fell down the stairs and had vague memories of his sister. He wonders if there's a connection between her luck and his own special ability. With a smile, he asks to see a photo of her as a child to confirm his suspicions. The girl gets flustered, saying she has no photos on her phone and the albums are at home. With an embarrassed smile, she suggests they do it another time and tries to change the subject. But the older sister says she has old photos on her phone and prepares to show them. He says it's just one photo and there's no need for drama, and the younger one feels awkward. With the phone in hand, he sees the photo and confirms the girl was indeed a chubby child. The girl asks him not to laugh and he says she was very cute as a kid. He thinks the boys who teased her must be regretting it now, but he can't find any trace of her in his childhood memories and is left confused. With a serious look, he wonders if there really is no connection between them. He then asks if the two of them ever came to Anqing City as children. The older sister reveals they are from Anqing but moved due to conflicts. Surprised, the young man asks if she is also from the city, and she looks at him with curiosity. The younger one explains they went to school there but haven't been back in years and no longer know it well. The older sister asks if he's thought of something, and he says it was just curiosity. He thinks it's a huge coincidence that they are both from the same city and have luck-based powers, but he decides to think about it later as he doesn't have enough information to analyze. The scene then cuts to the Anqing City branch of the Bureau of Special Affairs. A man says he has read the captain's report, but the others still don't know the details. He then asks Duruo to explain the situation to all the agents in the room. The captain begins by explaining they were pursuing an organization that creates players. He places the report on the table, saying that's the gist of the situation they faced. Duruo recounts that they managed to return safely thanks to our protagonist's help. One of the agents asks if the player he mentioned is truly E rank and that powerful. Another agent says that even the captain felt outmatched and questions the young man's rank. The director then asks if they are trying to recruit the young man for the Bureau of Special Affairs. The captain says he has already asked, but the young man has no intention of joining the Bureau. The other agents wonder if he doesn't want items or potions, finding the refusal strange. Duruo explains the Bureau has many items, but most are E rank and wouldn't appeal to him. He says the dungeons they completed together were grade, and the young man has D rank items. The agents are surprised, wondering if he's a natural-born player to have so many good items. The director then says he has an idea to recruit him, which is why he called the meeting. He reveals that random dungeons have appeared 7 times, causing many fatalities. The director says the number of victims will only increase, and they must take action. With a determined look, he says they need to create a safe zone to protect themselves. He explains that to do so, they need a phantasmal material that only exists in another sector. The captain asks what the material is, and the director says he doesn't know the details yet. He reveals the material can isolate the safe zone from dungeons, and that the name is just a nickname. The director says they will have more information soon and will keep them all updated. With a smile, he says that from now on, they can request tickets for Sector 1. The agents celebrate, and the director says their families will have priority in the safe zone. With the meeting adjourned, the agents file out, and the captain approaches the director. He asks if he can use the spots in the safe zone to recruit our protagonist. The director says recruitment isn't about transactions, he needs to have a long-term vision. He tells the captain to investigate the young man's family and offer them spots as a reward for his help. The agent understands the plan, admitting his view was short-sighted and that he needs to think bigger. The scene then cuts to the protagonist's apartment, where he receives a call from the captain. He thanks him for his help and asks how much it costs to get the host and his daughter to the safe zone. The captain says it costs 30,000 coins, and the young man is surprised by the high price. With tears in his eyes, the agent says he put them in a secure zone and the value is fair. He explains the safe zone is built with a material that prevents people from being pulled into dungeons. The young man agrees to pay, saying he will transfer the money later that day. The captain notices the young man's curiosity and prepares to give him more information about the material. He says he doesn't know much, but the material can be obtained in Sector 1 of the game. The young man thinks he'll have to go to Sector 1 and that he can get information from the girl. Suddenly, the captain yells at him not to hang up, saying he has something important to tell him. He then reveals the Bureau has decided to give a special reward to our protagonist. The agent says the country is preparing to create a safe zone for all players. He says the reward is substantial and the young man should seize the opportunity. With a smile, our hero thanks him and says he will remember this favor in the future. He then tells the girls this is another reason for them to join the Bureau. The older sister says it's too early to discuss as the safe zone hasn't even been built. The younger one says she'll stick with her sister and will only consider joining a faction later. He then tells them to get ready as they're heading to the next dungeon the following morning. Suddenly, his cell phone rings and he wonders if it's the captain having forgotten something. But looking at the screen, he sees it's his mother and answers with a tired sigh. He claims the clients were very difficult, which is why he decided to quit. His mother then starts scolding him, asking why he lied about his job. He tries to explain, but she invites him to stay home since he's unemployed. The young man then invents that he's on a date with his girlfriend to avoid going home. His mother is skeptical, so he says he can send a photo to prove he's telling the truth. The two sisters look at him, confused and unable to understand the phone conversation. His mother then demands the photo, saying she wants to see if the girl is a good match for him. Desperate, he wonders how he went from a simple bluff to such a complicated situation. He then asks one of the girls to pretend to be his girlfriend so he can take a picture. The younger one is flustered and doesn't know what to say, but the older sister offers to help. With a smile, the young woman stands up, saying she'll do her friend this favor, no problem. The younger one points out her sister dislikes being touched by men, and the older one seems to ponder this. With a smile, the older sister says it's not a problem and that she can do it. The younger one then says her sister's expression is too cold and that his mother wouldn't approve. The older sister then gives up and the young man is left unsure of what to do. With a smile, the older one asks the younger one to take a picture of the two of them together for him. The girl then snaps the photo, and the young man sends it to his mother to prove he has a girlfriend. He thanks them for their help, and the older sister jokes that he owes them a few meals. With the photo sent, he finally manages to get his mother off his back and ends the call. His mother then replies, saying she doesn't care about age and he should bring her home. With a wicked smile, he says that next time he'll send a picture with the other sister. The older sister wonders what he's plotting and looks at him with a suspicious expression. He then invites the two of them out to eat before heading to the next dungeon. The scene then cuts to the train station, where the group prepares for their new adventure. The younger one complains they are heading to Sector 4 again, saying she dislikes the place. The older sister explains it's a paradise for the strong and a hell for the weak. With a smile, the young man says he can check out the sector if he manages to rank up. The older sister teases him, asking if he's not cursing himself by saying that. He laughs, saying he's already cursed himself several times and isn't afraid of one more. The train then arrives at the station, and a notification alerts the players to prepare. The group disembarks and finds themselves in front of a large, crowded zoo. The scene shows the entrance of the Starry Memory City Zoo, packed with a multitude of players. The older sister is surprised by the number of people and asks if it's always this crowded. He thinks that with so many people, moving will be impossible, making it easy to team up with the sisters. The notification then appears and the crazy zoo dungeon officially begins for everyone. The story of the zoo is told to a place created by an animal lover to give them a home. The director cared for the animals for 10 years, and the zoo became a famous and popular destination. The dungeon's mission is to either collect 10 good friend emblems or fulfill the children's wishes. The younger one finds it strange that the dungeon's name doesn't match the city zoo's name. The older sister then asks if they noticed anything odd in the dungeon's description. She points out the rule against going out at night has an exception for those who collect 10 emblems. With a serious look, she concludes the emblems are a prerequisite for the second mission. Our hero agrees, saying the zoo's secrets likely only reveal themselves at night. The group then enters the zoo with other players to begin exploring the grounds. He thinks the place looks like a normal zoo, with nothing unusual happening during the day. Suddenly, he spots a stall selling animal food and approaches to investigate. A man says each bag of food costs 1,000 coins and is good for 10 feedings. A player complains about the price, but the man says the animals only eat that specific food. He warns that emblems can only be obtained from the animals, and they must be fed. The protagonist group remains silent, observing the situation and considering their options. He thinks the price is exorbitant and suspects the man might not be the real director Shen. A group of players then approaches, asking if the vendor is the zoo's director. With a serious look, the man confirms he is Director Chen and faces the group of players. One of the players asks how many animals there are, and how they can collect 10 emblems. The director says each animal gives a maximum of 3 emblems per day, and it's up to their luck. With a dark expression, he suggests they could also just take the emblems from others. The players are shocked by the suggestion, exchanging worry and fearful glances. Our hero then concludes the dungeon doesn't prevent players from fighting one another. With a smile, he realizes it's not against the rules to take emblems from other players. The older sister says many players will prefer to take them to avoid spending money. The older sister comments that the game already has cannibal players and a system to inherit items. Some players then question the vendor, asking why they should believe him. The director says the truth is something they must discover for themselves, and the choice is theirs. One of the players then steps forward, stating the dungeon rules only prohibit attacking. With a dagger in hand, he reveals the rules say nothing about taking items from others. The director then dares them to try and take the food stored inside his house. The older sister comments that the rules don't actually forbid taking things, so they just need to be careful. Our hero tells them to forget about stealing, saying it's too early to know who the real boss is. The younger one agrees, saying since they can talk to him, they should try to get on his good side. The player then gets angry, yelling at the director, calling him a cursed old man, and prepares to attack. Without a second thought, the man rushes forward and leaps toward the house to take the food by force. He tries to kick down the door with a powerful blow, but something unexpected happens. The player is thrown backward by the impact, landing on the ground, not understanding what hit him. A bright light flashes, and the man screams in pain as he's hurled back with great force. He then sits on the ground in pain as the other players watch, completely shocked. The director remains at his stall, completely unharmed, and the player wonders how it's possible. Our hero then wonders if the wooden door or the entire house is a special dungeon item. The director then looks at them and says to either buy something or leave. The protagonist says he'll take 2 bags of food, and the younger one decides to get one for herself. He then asks the director if there are children at the zoo, since the mission is to fulfill one's wish. The director replies that he only sells food, not information, and tells the young man to move along. The younger one then approaches and asks if she can buy on credit, as she doesn't have 1,000 coins. The man says if they have no money, they can work for food by cleaning the entire zoo. The camera focuses on a tiger enclosure that looks incredibly filthy, with waste all over the ground. 2 players are completely appalled by the director's proposal and the state of the place. Our hero then senses someone watching them and tells the girls to ignore it for now. The younger one suggests they visit the animals first, as they only give 3 emblems per day. The older sister speculates if the animals were once human, since they eat 3 times a day like people. The protagonist then recalls the dungeon description mentioning bizarre animals on the premises. At that moment, a man watches them from a distance, and the older one concludes the zoo is very strange. Suddenly, the man who is watching them shouts the name of his ability, universal gravitation. An invisible force hits the group, who struggle to stay on their feet from the power's impact. The younger one then shouts the name of her ability, encirclement, to counterattack the enemy. A blue barrier forms around them, shielding them from the mysterious man's attack. The 3 players then reveal themselves and prepare to attack our protagonist's group. One uses fire arrows while another uses a spontaneous combustion ability. Seeing this, the older sister activates her fumble ability to disarm one of the enemies. The bow of the man with fox ears then shatters in his hands, leaving him without his weapon. At that moment, the other player realizes his pants are on fire and panics. The group is then surrounded by flames, but the 2 girls seem unfazed by the fire. Our hero then grabs the older sister's wrist to shield them from the encroaching flames. He then grabs the younger one's shoulder, keeping the 3 of them together amidst the fire. With a focused look, he prepares to use one of his defensive items against the enemy's assault. He then activates his infinite shield, and a barrier protects them from the approaching fireballs. A massive explosion occurs, and the leader of the other group watches the result of the combined attack. He gets frustrated that he can't see them through the smoke and fire that has formed. The younger one then points in a direction, announcing that the path for a counter-attack is clear. She summons her Poison Master staff and prepares to attack the enemies with her magic. A purple energy then surges toward the 3 players who had just attacked them. The group's leader is hit squarely by the poison and begins to feel sick from its effects. He is then trapped in a column of energy as his allies watch, unable to react. The older sister tells the younger one to retract her encirclement, and she complies. As the smoke clears, our hero's group is revealed to be completely unscathed by the attack. The older one then summons her metal puppets to attack the enemy group's leader. The puppets fire several energy beams, hitting the man squarely and defeating him. The other 2 players are terrified and decide to flee to avoid being eliminated as well. The girl watches them run and prepares to use her puppets to stop their escape. But our hero stops her, telling her to just memorize their faces and conserve her energy. She then understands his plan: let them collect the emblems, and then take everything from them later. With a smile, he says that taking them is faster, and that just taking the emblems is almost an act of mercy. The younger one agrees with his logic, but the older sister is embarrassed by the young man's plan. They then come across a zoo map that shows the bizarre names of the animals within. The group reads the names, wondering what kind of strange creatures they will encounter in this place. The older sister comments that the protagonist might be right about the animals being failed evolved individuals. The younger one then remembers the director plays with the animals, and insane monsters wouldn't do that. Luciding then recalls the sea monster they faced, which wasn't completely insane. Our hero says guessing won't get them anywhere and asks the girl to pick an animal to visit. She then decides to go to the 4 not-alikes enclosure first, and the group follows her. They begin walking through the zoo, which is quite large with mostly flat terrain. After climbing a small hill, they finally reach their destination after about 5 minutes. The group then approaches a large green enclosure, preparing to see the bizarre creature. Inside, they find a strange sleeping animal that looks like a gorilla with rabbit ears. Shocked, the young man confirms this bizarre creature is definitely a failed evolved individual. With a serious look, he tells the girls to stay 5 meters away from him so he can protect them. The older sister then spots a sign on the enclosure and approaches to read it. The sign states that attacks are permitted in the interactive game, but the animals cannot be harmed. The two sisters read the sign carefully, trying to understand the rules of this strange dungeon. Interaction within the game's rules is allowed, but they are forbidden from harming the animals. The younger one is confused and asks if they are really supposed to play with that kind of chimpanzee. The protagonist says they probably are and approaches the door to enter and take a look. The creature then wakes up and stretches, appearing very sleepy and calm at first. The group enters the enclosure, and the animal observes them with curiosity and a bit of surprise. With a smile, the creature exclaims that someone has finally come to play with it again. Our hero is shocked to discover the animal can talk, comparing it to a famous movie. The two girls are also surprised, wondering if the creature can truly communicate. The older sister speculates the monster might be a high-ranked player who has maintained their sanity. The creature then sits down, waiting for the group to approach and start the interactive game. With red eyes, the creature asks why they've stopped and if they aren't going to play after all. The older sister then tells it to wait, revealing they brought food as a gift. The creature gets excited at the sight of the food, celebrating that they brought it bacon. The protagonist then offers the food in exchange for the good friend emblem he needs to collect. The monster asks if they will still play, and the young man confirms they love all kinds of games. The creature then mulls over the young man's proposal, seeming to consider the trade. But with a furious expression, the creature rejects the offer, surprising the group with its attitude. The scene then cuts to the bureau, where the captain is reporting on the pursuit of a player creation organization. He then places the report on the table, saying this is essentially the situation they faced. Duro explains they managed to return safely from the dungeon thanks to Fan Xiao's assistance. One of the agents then questions how an E-rank player could be as powerful as he described. Another agent agrees, wondering if someone who outmatched the captain is truly E-rank. Director Li Jianqi then asks if they are attempting to recruit the player for the bureau. The group is left speechless by the creature's refusal, unsure how to react to the situation. Our hero then complains that the director knows how to run a business and is exploiting them. The younger one concludes that many players have been tricked and forced to work for him. The older sister says this means winning the creature's game will be anything but easy. With a smile, the young man asks the creature what game it wants to play with them at that moment. With an excited look, the creature proposes a game of rock, paper, scissors with face slapping. The protagonist thinks the game is unfair, as the rules allow the chimpanzee to hit them as much as it wants. The creature then reveals they only have 1 hour, and if there's no winner, it still gets the food. The younger one complains that this isn't fair, but the creature says they should go easy on it. With a determined look, the young woman declares she will play with the creature to resolve the situation.